Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Capital Improvement Program Committee meeting to order. It is 7:04 p.m. on January 29th, 2025. Quick point of order before we get started. There's with the new appointments, it triggered a firestorm of trying to understand who needed its oaths for appointed members. So we have worked that through. And thank you everybody on the committee for working to get sworn in with Nicole, and thank you to Nicole and Ivan for working through the logistics of some of the peculiarities of all that. So the only member not yet having not had the opportunity to take an oath is Christina, who is not on the call yet. So, with that said, we need 5 for a quorum, and we have 6. We are good. We have an official meeting. So with that said, members present.
Can't find that little message.
Oh.
I've been unmuted.
Pete, if you could just mute yourself online for a minute.
Certainly.
Thank you. Members present are Jennifer McHugh, Stephanie Summers, myself, Dan Marshall, Steve Cobb, Peter Bacon, and Peter Tanaka. And with that said, present to speak. I'd ask you to state your name and address for the record. And if you have something to say, at your time. Peter, I'll start online. Anything to say? Or... There you go, Peter Latinchich.
Good evening, Peter Latinchich, 97 Trask Road. Good to see you all, and I appreciate your diligence in working on this CIP plan. And I just wanted to comment that I hope you're recognizing your function as an advisory board or committee to the Board of Selectmen, and that the CIP plan is actually the responsibility of the selectmen with your advice, of course. And that said, I'd like to add to that I also, I'm hoping that you work with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance in your recommendations, because last year in our budget process, which I know is not your direct responsibility, the budget failed in referendum largely because CIP just created an overwhelming tax burden that the community couldn't manage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. I'll just correct for the record, we had a decrease in CIP spending last year. With that said,
yeah, it was cut.
Approval of minutes. Anybody else? Oh, sorry. Thank you, Pete. Anybody in the room? I know you're all here for the subject matter of the day, so I assumed I should have. I apologize, John.
No, move we accept the minutes of January 22nd, 2025.
You're already moving on, Pete. I was just gonna give him a chance. But
all right,
give him a second.
Well, I didn't hear anything, so I
beauty. All right, so we'll move on from present to speak. Peter, would you like to move?
Yeah, I would like to move we approve the minutes of January 22nd, 2025.
I'll second.
All right, motion moved and seconded. Anybody have comments?
Once again, outstanding job, Lisa.
It is impressive. And here with us tonight. Thank you, Lisa. Good to see you. Any comments? Have you guys all had a chance to peruse? You did a really good job of, I think, capturing what was a advanced challenging conversation. So. All right, hearing no comments. But I just want to know, Melissa McKinnon just joined us online at 7:09 p.m. Melissa, any comments on the minutes?
Nope.
Wonderful. All right, so we moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. Don't need to get called. All right. I will keep this next part brief. Chair status report, moving on. Just want to let you guys know I did get access to the website, so we do have, I did update it slightly, but what is included in there is all everybody's updated turn limits as received from the town clerk's office. Also posted, this problem as I could figure out how to, the notification to the town letter that was published on the town, by the Board of Selectmen last week on our town pages. So that is all there for your perusal. If you have any comments and want to say anything added, let me know. And we can try to make it an effective communication tool. Next item, outreach and communications. I pulled this forward just because it's been a lot. And I think it's just something to keep at the forefront. Really briefly, I did reach out to the chair of the Board of Finance about being on his agenda for the February 20th meeting. And he said we'd have a slot just to give them an update after our first full look at the plan, to say, hey, this is what we're looking at. Understanding that, we're trying to keep the communication process going here. I'll suggest
The 19th, maybe?
we have our meeting on the 19th. Is when I think all the presentations should generally be done by then.
The 19th is a Thursday.
Are you sure?
I think you're wrong.
I'm a year off.
Okay. That's what it says, the 20th on my
Yeah.
calendar.
We have
I
a-
scheduled, listen, because I scheduled my kid's physical this,
There you go.
I was the
Okay.
26th, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, our meeting is, we meet weekly, but our meetings.
Now I know, because I just go a day back.
Their regular meetings on the 20th. We'll be on that agenda. Want to note, the selection had reviewed their budget on Monday. And Pete, the offer stands, there seemed to be a lot of questions about the CIP plan still, despite the line by line walkthrough. So if there's any,
Yeah,
the
I
ability. to
will
help
be
you guys
talking to
understand that.
my board some more. We've been trying to meet more often to make sure we know what we know. And what we have questions on, so we can move forward.
Well, the offer stands. If there's any, if there's anything we can do or I can do, anybody has any questions, I'm happy to meet, to just go through the specifics. To the extent that we know them.
What we don't know is.
That is also true. The other item, the library CFP requests, they are working with the town engineer. I did get in touch with the director, the new director, Steve, the butcher's last name, Ossier. Is that right? Anyway. They have a new director who's only been around for a couple of weeks. So he is transitioning into the process. I have asked them for their updates by the 10th in recognition of that, so that when they come before us on the 12th, we have that time to review them. They are anticipating requests, many of the ones that we already have in the list. I'll share those, what we had from last year. Once we receive their new requests. And I also heard from Karen, Karen and I had a back and forth, Karen, Human Services. Who's active life, me, her last name is.
Okay,
Thank you, Karen Cote, sorry, Karen. The senior center is not planning on submitting anything this year. They decided to handle themselves outside of the CIP process, but we did speak, and I'm gonna meet with Karen sometime later on, or we can have Karen in, or I can meet with Karen later on in the year, just to.
I think that they have several projects that they're looking at, but none of them rise to the level of the CIP project. They're all under $10,000. Some of them well under $10,000.
Yeah, so, but with that said, they haven't submitted much in the past, so to be able to bring them into the fold, or at least have the process, I think is important before we get to next year. So we can address that after this busy budget season.
Haven't we bundled some projects like that in the past? Or is that,
I still don't believe it's rising to $10,000.
okay,
And the other problem is that up until this year, they haven't had a senior center director to start ordering
Aging.
and planning some of this. So I'm not sure they have a plan yet.
okay,
The senior center came directly to me. I said, what? If you talk to the senior center director or the director of human services or the board of finance or anybody before you walk them out. They're learning the process still, and they should be getting better at it.
Which means that possibly in the very near future, we'll be getting to the project that's $100,000.
And that is why,
or something.
and that's why I extended the offer to at least get the conversation going.
I think so far,
So,
that's not. It's, on the horizon. So far.
so far. And that's all I got. For communications, I don't know if anybody else has seen anything. Personally,
The library board have time to come.
they are planning on being before us on the 12th.
I do want to say that I've met Steve and then I had a chance to speak to the town manager of town where he's from. And he should have some familiarity with the process as he was the chair of the town council for several years.
Yeah, he's been very
He's,
responsive and forthcoming, and he's.
I
The
think
town
we,
council in Tallinn?
yes. He's a smart guy. And the town manager could not say enough good things about him, so.
Good.
All right. That's it for outreach and communications at the moment. So moving on to the new business of the day. First up, 6A, the Wellington Fire Department #1 and Wellington Hill Fire Department capital request review. So thank you guys for coming in, much appreciated. We don't have too many in the room, I'm gonna ask everybody to try to focus it so that we can not be here past these 9
Oh,
o'clock.
that'd be
So
Amazing.
to that end, if we can focus and direct our questions to the chiefs and or chairs of the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee. If there are specific items that somebody else in the room can address, I'll just have you guys, point that out, but let's just try to keep it focused as we go through these projects so that we can get it done effectively and so that we can get the information we need. So with that said, I'm gonna suggest we start with the 3 pieces of apparatus that are on the request list for this year. Those are CIP 2218 Rescue 149. They may not be in this order in your packet. But I printed out the submissions for you all as they were provided to us. So 2218, 2217. 1 second, I find them myself. And I don't have a number for the last one. And 25.5 would be service 213 replacement.
Was there 25?
Yeah, 25.5. Very good. And they are, I think that's top down in order of magnitude in that order. But,
20, I'm sorry.
Yep, we'll
I'm
put it-
trying to do it online, but I can't. So 2217, 18,
2217,
and then
18,
25.
25.5. I'm actually, Lisa, I'm gonna bring up, we talked about this, hold on, I gotta find it. Yes, to be able to share this. Oh, could you turn on sharing? Oh, there it is, thank you. All right, you all have a kind of consolidated list of focusing on the fire departments of the earlier draft of the equipment replacement schedule, and kind of a 10-year potential forecast. So I think it's important to kind of start to talk about these in the larger context of the overall need. It's on the screen, gentlemen, but you probably can't read that from your distance, so I will zoom in to the greatest extent possible. And we'll go from there. All right, 2217, 113 refurbishments. That is on the list for year 3, 27-28. The placeholder value we have for that currently is $850,000.
No, 250. 250.
Oh,
And that should be 25-26.
I'm sorry,
200.
squad 113 replacement, you're right, I had the, yep. You're good. It is the Freightliner 2003. It's up for refurbishment this year,
Yes,
correct?
yep,
And that went up from a prior request of 225, right?
yep, because of vehicle repair, what we're seeing for prices, just gonna give a quick history of the truck real quick, so everybody knows.
Yeah, as a note, guys, if you have any documentation, because there was no attachments, nothing submitted in support of any of these, any of the requests on the docket, so.
So I think Chief Snyder will agree, everybody that we've reached out to try to get a hard price, they're not happening. Trying to get anything formal out of a dealer is not happening until we actually have some type of commitment. With how much fire apparatus repairs are going up is unbelievable. So this is a 2003, it's 22, it'll be now 22 years old. It's been the busiest or one of the busiest trucks since it came here. The body itself is okay. It's a poly body, so it's plastic. The bigger issues that need to be addressed with it is the pump. There's a problem at the high end of the pump at full capacity. So this would entail a pump rebuild on it. Fixing some paint on it, upgrading lights to LED because it does not have LED on it. They're all old halogen lighting. So it'll be LED conversions to LED. And really that's it. There's no big thrills with doing this refurb other than the pump.
Well,
The pump is a big,
the thrill in mine as it gets 10 years
Are,
old.
are we looking at 2217 for $250,000?
yes, sir, correct.
And that's in
That
that
is-
year or 3 years out?
This year.
This year, all right.
526.
Yeah, Jim?
Can I just ask where wait, if you can't get a hard quote from somebody, where did the 250,000 come from?
So we've been able to get some estimates talking to them on the phone. But they're not putting anything in writing. They still won't even give us a date of, we called, so Twin Lights in Wallingford, Milford, thank you. When we talked to them, they're the ones that did our last one. They still won't even give us an idea. If we were able to confirm we're gonna move forward with the project, it could still be a year before they'll be even able to touch it. And we're seeing that with most vendors. And that's just for a refurb. Trying to build or buy a new truck from scratch is at least 36 months right now.
So if
That's
we,
why we're hoping to do a refurb to stretch this truck out.
so if this, so if this is approved by, all the folks that need to approve it and it's not enough, would you just have to lower whatever projects they were gonna do to refurbish it?
That would be the
And if
plan.
it's, I don't know what the process is, if it comes in lower than that, if I'm sure it won't.
Stuart, Trevor, jump in here. We're seeing the pump is like $100 and something thousand. The rest of the lighting upgrades, replacing the.
How recent is your latest quote for your
It
latest?
was 2 months ago, we had asked.
So it's not like last year, question, you just added 25, that's all I was trying to get.
Stuart, any comments? Yeah,
How long does it take to get refurbished, to get that process going, once you have funds released, is there a lead time or lag on getting that done, just like a general question?
no idea. I unfortunately don't know. When we asked, we don't, it could be 6 months to get a pump, it could be a year to get a pump.
So
It
it's,
depends on, we would rather just replace the top end or, Stuart, I'm gonna mess this up because I'm not a pump guy. Top end of the pump is what we would, and then
There's a couple, but there's parts that wear on the inside, just like any pump, including your wall pump it on with an impeller. That, wears down, there's wear rings that go around the impeller, then you better hope the shaft is okay and the case is still okay. It's black iron pipe in there, it's been there for 20 years, and typically where the threads are cut on it. Is where it's gonna corrode first, because that's where it's the thinnest. And we had to do that with one of the other trucks years ago, whatever. One pipe broke and one broke, and another one broke, ripping the entire pump out and doing the whole thing.
can I ask you generalized questions? When you identify something as like a pump needs to be replaced, are you guys self?
no, it's certified every year, so it's still passing certification. But it's
It's a bad noise.
there's a bad noise so it is passing certification. The truck is certified. It was just pump tested last 2 weeks ago. And passed certification. It's just at the top end at high RPM, it is making a noise that we know it's gonna at some point.
So I'm gonna use an analogy, pardon me. So it kind of like, we're talking about the schools and once we start digging in and tearing the walls down and we find more stuff that's gonna cost more stuff. Is this that kind of a scenario, do you think,
No.
or?
That's why we went worst case of if we had to replace the entire pump.
Okay,
The hope is we won't have to, but they don't know that till they actually, yeah. We went worst case scenario rather than least.
and the anticipation is that this refurbishment will increase the vehicle's life,
At least another 10 years, we're hoping.
and if it were not to be done.
I can't give an estimate. I don't know. Because if the pump blows, we're out that truck. So,
And
or
obviously
then it's an
fast,
emergency repair that we would go to the board of finance to try to find funding. So
right?
that's why we're trying to plan it.
General then is that it needs to get, you believe it needs to be serviced.
And the mechanics have said there's a bad noise at the top and all dust.
Can I ask sorry, Melissa, just to point it out, I have trouble following whether or not you have your hand raised, so if you do, feel free to just unmute and chime in with any questions along the way.
Okay, no
Uh,
problem.
The general question, and we had some conversation back and forth via email about trying to identify what the service life and service durations of all of these pieces of equipment are, to the greatest extent we can. And my understanding is this type of truck is there OSHA requirements related to a 20-year service life? Fill me in on what.
So NFPA says 25 years.
Yes.
Um,
Is what?
should be replaced. The vehicle should be replaced.
Okay,
But there is if you do refurbishments, there is part of that you can extend the life of the truck. I can't remember the subsection off of.
Just to add into what Alex was saying, that after 15 years, NFPA recommends a frontline piece, which is the bringing truck out the door all the time, be put as a reserve piece, but you can do the necessary refurbishments. Bring it up to the latest edition of NFPA. And like Alex said, the recommendation is after 25 years, that apparatus gets retired.
so given that this is a 22-year-old piece of equipment, what is the overarching strategy here? If 25 is really your NFPA recommended service life.
Absolutely.
So if it pleases the chair, we went through over the decades that a lot of us have been doing this, we've gone through this conversation a lot. And the life cycles of the trucks, the replacement cycles that Willington was experiencing, say in the 90s, when a lot of these trucks that we're talking about now were new, was 20-year cycles. But we were also talking about trucks at the time that were $200,000 as opposed to $800,000 or $900,000 now. And in our conversations actually here in CIP meetings, because the amount of trucks in town, when you're replacing every 20 years, that meant like every year or two, there was another truck coming up. So every year or two, you were fighting for another couple $100,000, it was a lot of money. And so both departments were getting that feedback that we just can't we can't be buying fire trucks every other year or 2 trucks in 1 year. For a long period of time, we had both departments needing a new truck at the same time. And then 2 years later, both departments needed another new truck at the same time. So some of the things we did was we tried to build trucks a little heavier. So adding a percentage, adding a 10 or 20% onto the cost of the truck, we were able to build heavier specs, bigger brakes, all that stuff. It was a fight for that money at the time. But now those trucks, like the ET 149, which we talk about in our request, is a 1991. And that truck is still somehow holding up, hasn't been refurbished, is somehow still, it doesn't get used as much as some of the others, but somehow it's living its best life at 30-some years old. And part of that is because we spec'd it heavier. So we're trying to get trucks we started in the 90s trying to build trucks that would last 30 years instead. Unfortunately, some of those trucks are all now 30 years old or 25 years old. But that's the replacement cycle that we've pushed for is 25 to 30 year cycles now instead of the 20 year. But that does mean rebuilding and expensive repairs along the way to avoid doing a $800,000 new truck.
And that's really what I'm trying to get an understanding of is, you know, is we're at 20. Not replacing at 20 because a quarter of the price. Potentially gets us
And-
to where we need to be to extend that
Quarter of
service.
the price gets us a 50% life. extension.
And
The reefer gets you 10 years or so.
Yeah.
right.
And then we'll get to 30 years.
And that's why we do, and both departments do it, of making sure that the trucks are certified every year. They don't. They're DOT inspected, so they're gone, you know, we have a mechanic either come in the house or we send it out. We both use the same mechanics, to make sure that they're DOT safe, certified. And if they're not, and this truck actually had an issue 8 years ago, that they red flagged that truck because the subframe on it had rotted away. So it had to be repaired. Remember how much that was? I want to say it was almost 75,000 to do it at that point. But that's why we have this done, is to notice these issues. Same with pump testing. Is
I
to
got-
find,
I got a question that's kind of.
Yep.
Is this Fund 17 money that was used on this?
I would assume.
That's all I need. Thank you.
That's up to.
That's really up to you guys, but-
Board of Finance, yeah.
That's up to you guys, but generally apparatus comes off of Fund 17.
Yeah, but you guys provide, I mean, the ambulance is where the Fund 17 money comes from, and I know that you guys have had. Thoughts on how Fund 17 is spent in the past, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, Pete, since the inception of Fund 17, the taxpayers have not bought the ambulance or a fire truck in this fund. That fund was bought, the insurance recovery fund was bought.
What is the
What's the
balance?
balance, yeah.
So I know the projections are higher than what Donna had.
Yeah, Donna has not given me updated.
I don't have the updated, but every time I ask how the fund is, it's overperforming what.
We were
So
carrying
last-
placeholders of 175,000 based on last year, but that was when you had 2 ambulances running. Full time, or not, one, but you didn't have one offline,
Right.
because the second ambulance, I apologize.
So,
Um,
but with the addition of that second ambulance, was able to drive up over $100,000 worth of revenue last fiscal year that was not anticipated because we weren't out of services money.
All right.
It,
I think it's in the $300,000 range, but I'll.
Yeah, I think it's
Feels like
three.
that's what
three and a
was in
quarter.
my head.
I want to say 325 sticks in my head, but I don't know why.
I'll open that up in the background, Jen. You've got a phone.
okay, that'll be helpful.
So. Just to kind of close the loop on the finer point, the. NFPA 25-year service, what are the ramifications if you guys have a piece of equipment up, in service for 30 years? From a management standpoint, from a
So there,
certification standpoint.
as long as we show that that vehicle has been certified, it's been maintained. As far as we're under, because state of Connecticut doesn't follow. And if like you're the truck guy, so help me out here.
The state of Connecticut does not mandate compliance with that NFPA standard. It's used as industry guidance or best practice.
That's what I was.
So you probably understand what that translates to is it's not a hard violation. It's if something goes wrong, why didn't you follow it question? And then we have to prove that we've been maintaining and repairing and all that. So it's.
If that truck were to fall apart going down the road, they're gonna come asking. Why is this maintained? Was it certified?
Why did you keep such an old truck?
Someone said, I forget, pardon me, I forget who said it, but, that there's a subsection that talks about when you refurbish it.
Yep.
That would be
It's-
helpful to,
Yeah, I don't remember that.
I don't remember well enough,
not my fault.
I have to look at Mike and Trevor for that, because they're the.
I don't need it right now, but I.
Yeah, we can get it.
It would be helpful to know that, I feel like.
the July 1st, 2024 balance from last year's plan was in Fund 17 was $383,666.
That is very helpful, thank you.
All right. Does anybody have any further questions on spot 113? Going once, going twice. Thank you guys for number one. Number two. Let's go up to the one I meant to talk about first, which is squad rescue 149, CIP 2218. For $850,000 that is slated for. I gotta bring the right sheet up on my screen. That is year 3. So fiscal year 27-28. First initial question, gentlemen, is what's a rescue? That's a good start. We'll go with that.
It's when you save someone from.
Rescue just holds all your equipment for any technical rescue, car accidents, fire support, things like that.
It's a big truck, it's not a SUV.
Yes, it's a big truck, yeah. Yeah, it's heavy, it's a
It's
heavy.
the
rescue.
toolbox.
Yeah.
It's the biggest tool.
Holds all your first rescue tools, all that stuff. Airbags.
Same 2020, same 25 year. These are all, that's a consistent.
Yeah, it's a consistent thing. Of course, this one is beyond that. At the 20-year mark, we did a refurb on this truck, which was about $90,000. And now we're right at, or just approaching the 30-year mark with this truck. And if it stays in the plan for year 3, we'll hit 33, 34 years on the truck, plus the build time and stuff. So,
Yeah, so that's the larger question, I guess, is 36-month plus lead time. You have this on year 3 of the plan.
approaching 35 years or something.
Is that the reality? Is the reality you need funding in year 3? Or is the reality you think you're gonna need a vehicle 3 years from now, and this should really be a request for this year? Maybe it should have been a request years ago, I don't know, we're trying, I know it was a request years ago, I'm sure it was,
Now,
but.
knowing the truck and the condition of the truck and the amount of calls that goes on and things like that, I think this schedule will work just fine. Knock on wood, I hope, nothing catastrophic or anything really major happens with the truck.
Funding 27-28 for delivery up to 3 or more years later,
Yeah,
which would, so you have 6 years, 7 years of service life left in this truck.
I would say 5-ish, yes, again, we can work on the delivery time and stuff like that. I don't know what it'll be at that point. But yeah, I think, like you said, I think with this schedule, with that truck, again, knowing the condition of the truck, will be in good shape. Like I said, it was refurbed 10 years ago. There's a significant amount of rust on the cab. Some mechanical issues like throttle sticking and motor problems and stuff that are arising. But again, same mechanic that Alex talked about is checks our trucks, certifies our trucks, goes through, passes DOT. So no real huge red flags. It's just the age of the truck and the small things that are gonna turn the big ones.
The only thing I'm really interested in now, only because I know, like Colin, it's not this truck in particular, but they recently replaced one of their primaries for like 1.2. Which I know, thanks that we've had that conversation a little bit online. My question is that piece of equipment jumped from 9 or 950 up to 1.2. Based on recent data, and I guess I'm wondering, this $850,000. How long has it been $850,000?
It's been $850,000 for a couple of years now, and yeah, the question is, and like we've all had the discussion, prices are going through the roof real fast. I did talk to a dealer a couple of months ago, and he gave me the same price for 1.2 to replace the same truck. I'm currently looking at alternatives. What I mean by that is the box is good, but we haven't had it inspected, so I should say, I hope the box is good, and maybe we could do like they're doing with the ambulance, re-chassis. But from what I'm being told right off the bat is it's gonna be kind of an impossible task because that box was built for that chassis. And so in order to modify the box to fit a new chassis, it's gonna be extensive fabrication and stuff like that, and I'm being told it'll probably be just the same amount of money. I am looking into alternative cabs and chassis, size trucks, things like that, that will get the job done as well. But again, we're kind of running into the same ballpark in terms of numbers.
That was 1.2, like a recent quote, not a projected quote by weekend.
Well, again-
Other than escalate, but
I mean, I called a couple of dealers and I talked to them on the phone, like they said, and that's about as far as they'll go, because they won't give you the time of day unless you are ready to pull the trigger and start facing the sale.
You have a check in your hand.
Yeah, basically, or we got a commitment. If we have a commitment.
Right.
Then they wanna know, okay, yeah, let's sit down and we'll start building the thing because it's committed, the money's gonna be there.
along those lines, though, I mean, we know, Colin, I know you're familiar with other fire departments and other municipalities around, like. Do you have a network where you can kind of source what a guy, yeah, I gotta imagine there's a network that,
That's where I got the 1.2, was
Yeah.
talking with them.
okay.
That's how I knew the truck was.
I'm just trying to find an avenue where we can kind of identify what even current market rate is rather than 5-year pricing so that we can plan ahead.
Truck sales,
In another world, I do sell fire.
Oh, really?
So I have been advising. We're seeing 12% per year over year in increases. There are emails floating around right now. We're expecting somewhere around February, March, another. They're estimating 4 to 6% maybe. They usually try to panic us and it really comes in around 3. But then the next quarter we get another 3. And of course, that's compounding a little bit, it's 3 on top of the newer number. And anybody in the industry, including myself, we have to, when we get a phone call like this, which I get regularly, I have to put a high ballpark price on. Because the hardest thing to do when you're trying to sell it is to say, oh, you added $3 worth of stuff, I have to add $3 to the price.
Yeah.
So we have to have some room in there. And then when it's all pinned down, we negotiate with the factory and try to get a discount from the factory too. So it has to start high and work its way back down.
Yeah, well, I mean, knowing that. You're that resource. It would be helpful, I think, just generally before we really get into deciding where things fall on this, if you had the ability to take a stab. And provide your best. Guidance if there's no other resources available, so what current day, what these pieces of equipment might be worth in present value.
We are in communication and trying to keep the numbers kind of current. For the record, I don't sell in this part of the state of Connecticut. There's no conflict.
We won't hold you to it, but if we're looking at a 5-year-old $850,000 ballpark that's out the window, so. To the point that we can plan to start to build to something that we can actually get on a schedule and get these things for you. We need to understand what that need is so that.
yeah,
we can
and
ask for it. potentially.
And you mentioned the network, and that's pretty much how we gotta get our pricing, so I do look around and say, okay, recent sales, this is exactly what we have, or sort of what we need. What's the price? And then you go by, that's all we can do, that's the best we can do. And like he said, they shoot high with the 1.2 million when you talk to them on the phone, of course. And I think with the modifications or adjusting the truck and them coming down, I think we would be a little higher than this ballpark, but I don't think we're gonna be 1.2 million. I'm thinking, if we went to 900,000 or something like that with modifications and adjustments in design and things like that, working with the dealers and saying, this is what we have. I again think that the price is reasonable. Just from, again, the networking and knowing what the flexibility is on both ends of loading a truck.
All right, so there's a potential range.
Mr. Chairman, just quickly, before you move on to the next item. I couldn't I don't know my passwords to log into the NFPA standards, but I can read the abstract and very briefly. To the previous question, the NFPA recommendation is 15 years of frontline service moves to reserve status. Anything over 15-year-olds should be regularly evaluated for rebuilding in accordance with another NFPA standard. And the key there is, as I mentioned before, they want it, if you're using it, they want you to explain why you're still using it, justify it basically. And in the standard for rebuilding, they strongly suggest things that are where it gets expensive, and that is evaluate if you're gonna invest money in a vehicle that doesn't have modern crash avoidance, anti-lock braking, seatbelts, airbags in fire trucks now, all that stuff. So they're basically hinting to you, if you want to keep on holding on to old stuff, you better be able to justify or hope you get away with not upgrading to the modern safety features. And you can't add those to an existing truck unless you re-chassis it, because then you're putting a new truck underneath it. So that, to the answer the earlier question about the NFPA standard.
Thank you.
So in other words, just kind of, this isn't what we're talking about right now, but on the ambulance plan you guys are talking about, it would basically bring you up to code because you are
It's a brand new
replacing the
truck, yeah.
chassis. Okay.
And just to segue on that, I will ask the question because it was asked by the chair of the board of finance when we presented with it. As to the current status, conditions and long-term planning in the CIP. Whether or not the equipment you guys are going for is base model versus fully featured, extras, upcharges to get top of the line. And there's probably a balance there because I understand you're trying to stretch service and duration life, but you can speak a little bit to what your targeting is, as you pursue purchasing this. Where do you walk the line, trying to balance?
No one around here is buying those stop-in trucks anymore. They're just too expensive. The money, if people are spending up at all, it's heavy brakes, heavy axles to try to make them last. Everyone's building, every manufacturer has a heavy-duty line, which they've built from experience working in the cities like Boston.
Yeah.
Trucks are getting beat on, pounded all day long, every day. They have to be more rugged. And so if people are spending money, they're spending it on what's called like the Boston spec or the New York spec. For ruggedness only, not for the fancy. The only places you're seeing that is like Fairfield County, where they have extra money and they can buy the fancy.
So we're thoughtful, and I assume you were, but.
Yeah, it's just way too expensive.
Extend service life, extend the longevity.
Yeah, it comes down to do we want the truck or not?
Yeah.
You can't, like Mike said, you can't put all the bells and whistles on it. I mean, a heavy rescue like we're talking about, rescue 49. I mean, it could go, I don't know how high a 10-wheel truck like they probably even do.
You could get it to 2.6.
Yeah.
We had spoken previously, a couple of weeks back about service life and mileage on these vehicles versus, looking at age and replacement schedule. It sounds like age is really gonna be the driving factor. Just generally, but to that end, I mean, are there any advantages? Is there an advantageous, some sort of analytical metric where service life is really a potential driver on the replacement duration of these rather than a 30-year-old, which is where we're at.
Well, like you mentioned, EP 149, I mean, you're going to 1991, the truck's still in good shape, so we had it on the plan, it got pushed back, I put it there just for a marker on the plan. Because at some point, it's 1991 truck, it's gotta be looked at, but it's still holding up well and stuff, and that's how we kind of base our replacement and refurbishments. Is okay, what's the shape of the truck, how many calls does it go on? And so that's why when you asked for the complete plan with all the trucks, it's near impossible to figure, okay, how much is our 2011 truck gonna cost when we need to replace it, when we need to replace it? We don't know. I mean, we're gonna hope
Yeah,
it's
well-
35 years.
And that's why I'm hoping to get to the point where if we understand today's value, we can at least project out 5 years, 10 years and understand.
You could try
That we're
5 years,
tracking it.
yeah, 5 years from now, the truck may take a left turn and be riding and falling apart and be $2 million.
I meant replacement cost, not necessarily the.
Yeah,
conditioning track,
Condition.
But, and that's what I'm trying to get at, so.
Yeah.
Pardon the cheapo question, but is there any value to refurbishing again since it's still in decent shape? Or is that not done?
Well, again, like I mentioned, it's not cost effective to refurbish the cab again. Because we already had some rust fixed on it and it's rusting more in places that are already repaired and stuff. So now you're chasing, rust, you're chasing mechanical problems. Again, I'm looking into seeing if there's anybody who would re-chassis the truck because it's a heavy duty truck. I'm getting a no from most people. No, we won't do that. And you know, the body's specifically built for it and stuff, so it would cost so much money to just redo it again to get another 5 years out of it probably
A lot of diminishing returns.
on a 35-year truck.
I had the 10 years in my mind from the last vehicle we talked about, so.
Yeah, and again, you know, the age of the truck is going on 30
Yes.
years, and then by the time this is done, it'll be 35, and if you refurb it, now you got a 40-year-old truck that you just think,
Yes,
you know.
Similar to some of our aging buildings.
It's
You can't keep up if it goes too long. I think that's all I have. Does anybody have any other questions on, 149? Rescue 149? No? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. That was very thorough. 25.5, CIP 25.5, service 213 replacement. This is a pickup, right?
Yes, so this is a 2015 F-350. This is to just get it onto the plan. I think we had it on year 3, year 4. At this point, the truck's 10 years old. The 24, either way. So it's 10 years old, 80,000 miles on it. The rust on, we've had a lot of rust repair. Part of the bed has already had to be repatched. The cab corner had to been, cab corner, the cab mount, it's had to be rebuilt on the driver's side of it. It's starting to show its age a little bit as a 10-year-old pickup truck. At some point in the next year or two, the talk is we may have to pull that bed off and either put a flat bed on it or find another bed for it, keep it going. Just because the cross members, anybody remember the old public works director vehicle, where those are the same models?
They fall off.
They fall off.
That's
So
what happened to my pickup. I found it on my road.
So
It's going back out.
cross member under the bed, not that supports the truck, but the cross member, there's another cross member that's rotting away that's gonna have to get repaired. Like I said, the truck has 80,000 miles on it. It does do the following for both the stations. It helps public works when they need it, because all the hydrants are on town. Along with as a first response vehicle for volunteers, and thankfully our volunteer number is up a little bit and actually is getting out to a lot more calls than it has been in recent years.
What are you looking at for, do you have any sense or semblance of
So
cost for those repairs in place, or the repairs?
no, because yeah, so
And
I
again,
want to say we spent. The bed was, the last patch repair was $1,000, $1,500.
Alright,
To
so
do the
we're
cross
not
member
talking-
and replacing the bed, I don't.
but we're talking, order of magnitude. $10,000, not $40,000 repairs to keep this thing
Nope.
going for another 3 years.
No, that would not, yeah, we would do that under general budget.
I'm not gonna get off of that year's operating, but
Yes,
yeah, so you'd be looking for the same kind of truck, like an F, whatever.
yeah, F-350, so that we can keep the plow on it. One, public works would, if we didn't have the plow, public works would have to help do hydrants and stuff like that. We do the majority of the hydrants now, right? Now, yeah. So they do all the hydrants with that truck. Both of the fire stations on Route 32. When public works isn't available, we have come up and plowed Station 49. Depends on how big the storm is and if they can get somebody there or not. But again, it's how public works of being able to open parking lots. It's another tool in the toolbox for the town.
Thank you.
So normally, Public Works plows the other stations.
Station 49 and I really do the church.
Yeah, they do across the street, 45, yeah.
any other questions on that particular vehicle?
Well, when you're talking about volunteers, are they using it for calls too?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and that's
Quite
because,
extensively, because we have a couple of least one junior.
Don't
that-
have vehicles of their own.
Oh, no, they do.
Oh.
But they go to this, we try to get them to go to the station and get a vehicle.
Mhm.
So just like with Wilmington Hill, somebody goes get the service truck, same there. We have a junior that's now a regular member. He went and got fire one, he's just finishing his EMT, so he goes to a lot of calls. And he's been taking that truck to a lot of calls, which has been great.
Before we move off of equipment, I just wanna discuss it, because it goes along the same line of needs here. We have two 1991 tankers
Yeah, so ET one, sorry, ET 213,
that are not on the list currently,
correct.
but they are 30.
213 is on the list
But we're,
So they're,
for 20.
I put them in year 5.
Oh, you put them in.
Yes, and I sent it in the email, I sent it to Zach Collier. Precisely because we're looking at 25 years of duration. And they are 34 years young currently.
so
And they're not on.
Is there any ability to reduce fleet at some point with getting one vehicle to do 2 vehicles work? I just
So
saw
for
the
us, that's the
garage
reason-
space right now is
for us, that's why we went with the squad, that's why we
Mhm.
have squad 113. Was to be a multi-purpose truck. With us not currently being at ET or 426 River Road. If we were there, we need the 2 trucks, one on each side. That was ET one and ET two. The backup is, anybody that remembers, we used the old ET 249 for years. We need for both departments, some type of spare. We ran into this issue, I think you remember where that truck came from, Crystal Lake?
Yeah.
We ended up having to borrow a fire truck out of Crystal Lake because we had one fire truck in the town of Wilmington. That was roadworthy. So trying to downsize our fleet, I don't know would be in our best interest.
Understood.
There is a problem in that with the aging of the trucks. I mean, 31 years is exceptional, but ET one or calling ET one, ET 213 has had a refurb. The truck is still certified. That has a brand new 10-year-old pump in it. So
Brand new 10-year-old.
not brand new, but
Feels brand new.
it feels brand new. But it has a newer pump in it. It's still certified. The truck's knock on wood. Mechanically, that truck is set. With no rust because it was refurbed. I think we did it again, $125,000 refurb. And then a $90,000 pump or $100,000 pump. It had to be put in. Please.
Maybe no one is able or willing to answer this question, but is there some liability if the truck is not certified and we continue to use it?
I can tell you if it's not certified, we won't use it. If it's not certified, we're not using it. So if they tell us that the truck is that. If goes through its maintenance cycle every year and they come back and say that the truck's not roadworthy or they're not going to certify it for some reason, then we are not operating that truck.
Okay.
We had to do that with the squad when they said that there was a problem with the subframe.
Would that then prompt you to go to the Board of Finance and ask for money for repairs if it was
It honestly depends on what that repair is. Is it a repair or is it a replacement? A replacement, I don't know how we would do that without planning it out. That's why
No, right, but if it was a thing that,
it would,
Like a-
absolutely, fails inspection, then that would be, and we've had to do that before, going back to Board of Finance, we blew a motor in the ambulance. That was a $10,000 repair. We'd have to go back to Board of Finance for that, because it's well exceeds what our operating budget for that vehicle is order.
Right.
It's gonna put us in danger of running out of money at the end of the year. And typically, those are handled through Fund 17, there's enough of a balance. Typically in Fund 17 that can handle those catastrophic failures. But, yes,
I mean, as you know, there's been great emphasis by you guys and by the board by CIP talking about the age of the vehicles, and it seems like every year they get certified. We're crossing our fingers that they're gonna get certified and.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's why we said with the long-term plan of all these trucks, it's really hard for us to determine what's gonna go and when.
sure,
You know, if he gets an inspection and fails it, then we're stuck with a good decision. They come back and fix that repair, take it out of service.
My worry, and I'll be honest, the things we're not on, that aren't on the list. We have 3 pieces of equipment that are gonna be
Yeah,
40 years if they're not on this list.
R91
The others
was
are
on the,
25 already. You're,
Yeah, the ET 149 and the 91 Mac was on there, but I don't know where it went.
yeah, it was on there for the longest time, again, as a placeholder, because it's in good shape, but it came off the plan. I appreciate you putting it back on.
No, I mean, those 3 in particular, just because of their current age, I think we need to understand, collectively that. Honestly, it scares the crap out of me.
well, to Pete's point though, I wonder,
Yeah, honestly.
I wonder if there was a, like, if we were able to figure out somehow replacing vehicles. We could reduce the fleet because there'd be more reliable vehicles and you wouldn't have to worry about having a spare in case one dies or.
Well, that opens you up because every vehicle is not needed on every call, but.
Right.
If you have 2 fires, if you have a car accident and a fire. So you have 2 incidents at all, you need the trucks that we have in town. You can't, you can call mutual aid, but there's a lot of delay in that.
The biggest challenge historically with needing more apparatus is really, it's twofold. It's expectations of the public about what service they get. For example, when I joined the Wellington Hill Fire Department in 1983, we would drive our personal vehicles to medical calls, and we had a kit in our car that we took into people's houses, and people were satisfied with, as we used to call it, Joe Bag of Donuts showing up at their house with a kit. And that was all you provided for medical care until the ambulance got there. The public expects way more than that. It runs their house full of equipment. We do way more advanced stuff than we did in 1983. And then the same thing happens with fires. If you look over the decades, just that I've been in the service, because of the change in what is in our houses, the plastics and the lithium ion batteries and all this other stuff, a fire starting in a typical home that would develop. There was a standard where it took to like 17 minutes before the atmosphere in the house got untenable for humans. So that's time for you to get out and time for the fire department to show up. That same standard is 3 minutes now. Because of lithium ion batteries, the amount of electronics in your house, the amount of plastic in your house, all that stuff. So now we have to get there faster with more equipment and more water, or it's lost. It's done. It's over.
There's a prime example, the last house fire, the Lucian Road. Every apparatus in the town was there and used for some purpose of what that truck is designed for.
And that was a small structure.
And that was a small.
Yeah.
Um,
And it exploded, right?
yeah. But there was still a lot of fire when we got there.
No, I know,
But-
I know there's work to do, believe me.
But,
Yeah.
same, we've had barn fires. Every piece of apparatus is there and we need that water. Most of our vehicles now are designed to carry water. That is our crucial, in town here, that's our crucial. We have 6 regular fire hydrants. So.
Yeah, so I mean, I've identified 3 that the other, besides the 2. Engines are the second ambulance, which would I think be close to its 10-year cycle.
So. Talking in-house, our plan right now would not be to replace that with a brand new truck. If we were to replace that truck, with another used truck, so that we had the spare. For when the primary and those stuff.
What are you talking about?
He had asked about the second ambulance. There is no request on the second ambulance. Because the thought is that when that truck is at the point of, we can't use it again. Because of what we use that truck for. We don't, at this point, need to buy a brand new truck. It would hopefully be just, we know some departments that are selling a used truck. For what we use that for to get us by while the primary is out, will get us by or relieve some of the pressure off of the primary ambulance.
What's the rough comparative sale price market on a used.
It depends on where you get it. It depends.
How much weight?
Well, it depends on, yeah, so,
So it could vary, but it's not gonna be 430.
but it could be $35,000 and get us 3 years. Compared to. $400,000.
Yeah,
As
you would
a,
ask.
as a stop, yeah.
Well, yeah, we asked about the idea that you would be using them sort of equally trading off
Mhm.
between them, so it extends the
It extends
lives
the
of
life.
both.
And you
If
don't want
we
it to
factor
sit.
that into the years that we're talking about in the plan.
Yeah, so typically we'd always put, so 513, the red one leaves this week for its remount. Typically, you would see that come back in year 5 for next year's plan. If we offset, you won't see that until it's hopefully the goal is a 10-year replacement. So you would still see one ambulance every 5 years. But our hope is that we can stretch it out, that it's not 2 brand new trucks. That's the thinking, right?
Yeah, the 513 was refurbished this year.
That is what's going,
It's going to be refurbished this year.
a remount, yes, it's going to get a new cabin chassis put on. It leaves, Saturday.
So just outside the year would be.
So, but right now, that truck's 10 years old, it's a 15, so that made 10 years. So if we're offsetting it right now with a 2011. So if we can get something that helps offset the years. We can extend it a little more.
Yeah.
That is our whole goal, I know, there's been a lot of discussion about that second ambulance, but it does have a lot of purpose to try to save that first truck. And to keep revenue coming in.
So,
Sorry, I didn't mean to get off topic.
no, I it's appreciated, not going off topic, but clarifying, because those are really the bigger concerns, because, I mean, there's a lot on here, and it's not, even if it's not a request. There's 1, 2, and 3, they look great, but there's the potential unknown of $3 or $4 million.
Launching up a traffic jam with
that
our
are already-
vehicles.
Yeah, and we don't have reserve. We don't have reserve. We have Fund 17, which,
But Fund 17 can't, it'll support a payment, but it
Correct.
can't support a purchase of a.
yeah, so I'm not sure it can support.
Depends on what that payment is.
Yeah.
I got information from Donna on, I
Yeah.
gave her a $900,000
Yeah.
figure. She got back to me at 146 per year
Yeah.
at least. So I mean, if you wanted to factor, instead of the $900,000 for 850 on the plan, it could read 146 per year for the next.
That's good.
Was that a 7-year or?
Yeah, I looked to see if she's identified, I think it's 7.
Yeah, because I had asked it was $1 million and it was a little higher.
So if that helps for the calculation, it's good. Yeah, 7 years. Figure 146 per year for 7 years to borrow 900,000 at 4%.
But that's what you guys are putting. That's probably in the neighborhood of what you put in annually, the Fund 17.
Yeah, after you take out the parent,
And we're already have $80,000 coming out of Fund 17.
there's like 250 something that goes in, then you have the paramedic payment, so.
So. It gets one vehicle.
That's it. Yeah, to your point about the ambulances, I understand that. It's a good plan. It's a good thinking, plan. But one of the things that's becoming a real crunch for Wellington's CIP plan is that we're adding big things, all the time, and we have like other big things like the building projects that are also sort of competing. Pretty soon there comes a point where it's like too much to like, it's unwieldy.
That's why you don't see it on the plan.
Pardon me?
That's why you don't see it on the plan.
Yeah, so, but I just, want to say that's not.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
one
and
of-
that's problematic in and of itself.
I know.
Right.
It's the reality of the situation, so, while I appreciate your sensitivity to doing what you can, and for a very long time, I think. Anyway.
So we going through these others or?
Yeah, let's drift through. So thank you. Any other questions on any of the equipment? Melissa, you good? I'm gonna take that as a yes.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks.
I'm good
Um,
too.
Who's that? Oh, Christina.
Christina, I'm here.
Christina, you have a rough idea what time you showed up? Because we don't have record. You
Oh
do?
yeah, I've been here. Been here for a little bit.
You're welcome.
Lisa's got it.
All right. So,
Friends of the outfit.
yeah, Christina, disappointed us since you're on. You didn't get a chance to say your oath, right? So
I didn't get a chance to what?
say, yes, for the town clerk's office. So
Right.
you're, you can join us in conversation except for any motions and
Okay.
voting.
Okay.
That's just morning.
No problem.
But thank you for coming. All right, moving on. All right, building related stuff. Thank you guys for your patience. That's probably related too. You got houses, apparatus and whatever
It's all
that happens. Let's start, actually, it's building related, but not that project related. Air containment, CIP 116. This is an older request, the air containment system for 35,000.
Yep, so we had left this at the 35,000. This would be a filtration system, 2 units in the bay, with electric,
This is 213, right?
yes, for the 143 River Road.
Is it our file?
It is, it's at the bottom of our
Very
CIP, separate CIP class.
So this was, the 35,000 would allow us 2 units within the bay, and give us enough to do the electrical hookups that would be required for it. The one sticking unknown point, is OSHA. So OSHA is coming again next Tuesday, so I can give an update after that. When we discuss this, they're having an issue that is not a direct capture system. So what they mean is the hose is going onto the side of the trucks because we have to use the bay as the dining room, meeting room.
They're gonna make you put in a hot system.
What's that?
They're gonna make you put in a.
So they're not going to make us, but they're telling us it's a health hazard for the employee to sit in the bay that is at the table that is covered in soot and diesel exhaust fumes and everything else. Because there's nowhere else for them to sit. They can go into the day room, the back room that has the bed, the couch, and a desk, but it's tiny. They're not staying in there more than one person is not staying in that room very long.
At least without pissing off the other person.
Yeah, because so they're coming back to look at that and to try to give us some ideas of which direction to go. They would prefer it's a direct capture system. The filtration system, primarily the cost is cheaper. It meets NFPA, but when it meets NFPA, it doesn't mean you're using that area as what they're considering a living space. The other thing that they're going to consult us on is what to do with the furnace. Because the furnace is drawing out of the bay. So when it draws out of the bay, it's taking everything that it pulls out of the bay into the rest of the building. Because it's a forced hot air system. So we had quotes of that to fix that is about $5,000. So that is not a CIP system, the furnace part of it. We had quotes, but they want to see what that is.
I mean, for
So
that,
it draws it out of that area, but it stays
Nope.
within the building. It
It's
doesn't.
going to,
doesn't
so the system that was
external.
for the furnace, the system that was quoted is it's gonna draw. It doesn't draw it off the building. It's a filtration something.
Fresh air system.
Yeah, thank you. Fresh air system that feeds the furnace. Rather than replacing the furnace only. But that was about $5,000.
So you're obviously not gonna spend money on something that is. dead.
Correct. That's why,
Essentially.
so the consultant from OSHA is free. There will be no charge for them coming out to do this stuff. There also will not be any fines for whatever they're fined. If he's looking at something else while he's there is no fines attached to it because we voluntarily asked them to come in. Because they want this part figured out. So.
What number are we on? Are we on 16? 116, yeah.
116. So I'm sorry, that last thing you
Yeah.
said, could you repeat that?
So
This wasn't finable,
This was not, yes,
but it could be.
no. They said it's not going to be because we have them coming out to give us to consult. So it's not finable, but they consider it a health hazard. It's not finable on their part. Because of, that's why they strongly recommended this consultant coming out. And when I say strongly, they're the ones that scheduled the date of your consultant is coming out on. So
He said he's coming out Tuesday, so you might.
Tuesday at 9 a.m. I can, yes, I can have more
He's
information.
been invited out.
Huh?
I said your consultant's being invited out.
Yeah, so more so if it's a personal health and safety issue.
Yeah, right.
For all of you gentlemen, if there's needs to be funds in there to cover, right, something. If you don't wind up expending it all, if there's a way, I don't know if we're inflated, obviously, I'm not saying that in any way.
And that's why I didn't want to change the price.
I just want to get an understanding if this is gonna grow to 70,000, 100,000, or if it's gonna be, if we're in the neighborhood.
I'm hoping to have a better idea to come Tuesday.
Okay, if you could follow up,
Yeah, as soon as we know something,
that
it
would be great.
Yep.
And I'll share it.
What year is this for? The 35?
Now.
Yeah.
You're one.
Yeah, even if it wasn't, I probably should be based on ownership.
And this was one of those, depending on how,
I think it was last year, actually.
yeah, so this was one of the conversations with OSHA, that if this had gone to a finable, we would be going back to Board of Finance right now.
Yeah.
But it is not a finable, it's not a,
I mean, I have to believe it would be finable if we did not fix it
if
after
we
they
did
told
not
us.
do anything and somebody could like, yeah.
That's what I was gonna do.
It's one of those things that rises to the level, it needs to
Just should be done.
be there. So,
Yes.
in my opinion.
Well, I understand that, yes, it's always helpful when there's a compelling force to. Make sure.
This has been very eye-opening, if that helps.
Not really, but sorry.
Push it aside, it just sounds a little grody.
And, yeah,
Just a bit.
it's been interesting.
All right. Any other questions on the air containment? Going once, going twice. All right, the next two, parking lot replacement 24 Old Farms, it's 2215. For those playing along with the table.
And the other one is, let's do it.
Why are they doing it? Oh. Because of the description and the name. So I think I sent, this is the one I sent wait,
One's replacing the lot.
15.
Oh, yeah. One's they're more complete than the other.
so one is last year's request versus this year's request. It went from 35,000 to 65,000. And this is all related to parking lot replacement 24 Old Farms Road. I think I printed it when I went through this initially because of the description in your new request.
Well, I think there's a little bit of confusion
Yeah,
there. There was $35,000 that's been approved. It's sitting, I believe, somewhere. Peter, I don't know if you know where, if you.
I don't know where it is,
Okay.
but yes, it is it's already in the plan
It's,
from previous years.
it's already approved and stuff like that. The problem is back when, not this public works director, but the previous one. Put that number on our parking lot replacement. When I went to look into it, it was nowhere near enough. Even back then. And then there was some ground cover issues that got squared away. So basically what we're asking for now is the 65,000 to complement the 35,000. To get the whole parking lot replaced and fixed.
just as a point out, that 35,000 was in the selected budget line 930 last year. So it's not a reserve. It wasn't a reserve.
It was in reserve.
It was not a reserve. It is budgeted directly. So it's just sitting there.
Yeah, it's just sitting.
And so they combined with 65.
And I believe that it was passed at town meeting.
It was
Yeah, oh yeah,
passed.
it's all clear and free to use. It's just not enough.
So it's gonna be 95?
I mean, 100.
Yeah, it's gonna be 100, I bet, because I priced it
Okay,
4 years ago at 75,000. That's why I said it was nowhere near enough, that 35,000.
That's a 4-year-old, that's a 4-year-old.
So I'm assuming, yeah, that's gonna be, I mean, we do know some people in the business that can probably keep it within this 100,000, but the parking lot now is deteriorated to such a point where it all has to be torn out. The subsurface has to be graded and then pitched and all that.
If I remember correctly, Tom, a couple years ago, when we started looking at it, we were also debating on whether to put that off because you may have been moving across the road to 25. And with those plans on hold with the Mr. Marco's committee, I think that this needs to be done or we're gonna lose a car into the septic tank and that would be bad.
Yeah, I mean, it just with along, you see the roof request in there as well. The property just can't go into disrepair. We don't know what the outcome of the facilities committee is gonna, how long it's gonna be. What, you know, it's up in the air too much. I mean, if there was a guarantee that we're gonna break ground next year, we can make a decision on what the future use of the property is.
Right.
And go from there, but there is that, and you can't have potholes everywhere and people that use them all tripping and the roof leaking and which can't really happen, so.
I mean, we can get into schedule, but I don't think you're breaking ground next year.
Yeah, right.
You gotta design.
Unfortunately, like you said, we do need to expedite,
So,
but
but the reality is, I mean, I guess that's the question, is we're getting into the neighborhood there where delays on coming up with what the ultimate goal of fire station projects is starting to potentially cost some meaningful things that we can't put off anymore. So I asked the question, do you have 3 years in this parking lot? Isn't it, you know, I haven't seen it. I haven't observed it recently.
3 years goes by fast. I mean, it's falling apart. But again, you want to preserve the property. And a lot of the property has some
Oh,
value.
this is in year 3?
No,
It's in year 1?
Yeah, it's.
I would hope that it's in year 1,
Yeah.
because I've been in that parking lot.
yeah, I believe it is, 25, 26.
Yeah,
So again, I mean, some people know the condition. Again, no matter what, do we want to preserve the property value? For some future use, for sales, for anything, I don't know what, you know? Or if we were to break ground tomorrow, sure, we could let it sit there and fall apart even more, but. Then
It's also used for town functions, fundraisers,
Yeah,
it's rented out.
And ultimately, you have dilapidated, broken down property right on the corner there. and So, I believe it has to be taken care of. To be responsible or.
All right, so $100,000 for a parking lot that we can't put off.
60.
Another 65.
Yeah.
$100,000.
Yeah, it's, the other's already ready to go.
Any other questions on parking lots? Let's move on to the other one, that is 24 Old Farm, CIP 22. Nope, wrong one. It's the only other one that's not engineering. Thank you. 25-4 is for roof replacement at Wellington Hill Park. Sorry, Stefan.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That church.
It's a big roof.
So
I
again,
did
this.
run numbers on that, it's in the neighborhood.
You did, yeah,
It's about 70.
unfortunately.
I bet gas, but yeah.
You know, this is a new project because we've run into some new problems. There's stains and dripping and leaking. Small, but they're there. And of course, everybody knows the roof doesn't get any better, it gets worse fast. I had some people come out, they walked around up on the roof, there are some soft spots. So again, it's a new project. I don't think it has to be done tomorrow, but
That's,
it's.
you have 2
not-
layers up there currently.
Yeah, the whole building is, well, not the whole
It's a
building,
strip
but
and- It's a whole strip and replace.
it's full strip and replace, yeah, with some substructure repair.
Yeah, not.
And then like everything else, I mean, I call and try and get quotes and try and get people out there to look at it. Fortunately, I did get one guy that came out. Inspected the whole thing, gave me the numbers. I did talk to people on the phone, gave me similar numbers, but they're not in writing quotes. Once they find out the procedure I have to go through to get the money and funding and how it could be delayed, and they're like, yeah, well, call me when you're ready, you know. So,
Yeah, you're in the neighborhood, you're
yeah.
guessing, pulling up the town card and looking at the area.
What year is this?
3.
3.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
Put it on the schedule.
we've patched, there are 2 places, one on the hall and one on the bays that we've patched already.
Yeah.
And we'll patch again. and
Yeah.
We'll stretch it. But that roof was done by an in-town contractor 20-something years ago.
for, I think it was $28,000 back then, 20-something years ago.
That was just the overlay.
$25,000.
Yeah, just-
Right, and it was just to put it over the existing,
Can't do that again, so.
right.
All right, so potentially year three, you guys have a patching operating budget to deal with any
Yeah, yeah.
imminent.
We'll be,
We're not
we'll be
missing,
patching for now.
we're not missing large slots of signals anywhere.
No.
It's- Okay. Any other questions on that one, guys? All right, moving on. Let's talk about the $15 million bond, 2212.
Wait a minute.
Future project.
Oh,
There are two left. There's the
Station and
Station 13
replacement, and then the
49
design and
replacement.
engineering.
and design and engineering
all right.
for 200,000. So let's start with the big one, and then we'll get into the design and engineering. 11.5 to 15 million. What is the 15? Fill me in, because I know you guys aren't there yet.
There it is.
This was Tom and I just talking of knowing what escalation's been, is after our conversations last year, just having some type of number on there. We think we're in the ballpark for what we had originally planned on our projects, but
This is based on the cost of the projects as they were.
they were,
yeah.
as,
Previously.
well, we didn't
imagined
want, right,
some-
we wanted something on the plan. We want something on the plan.
Okay,
We know 15 million is probably not it. I would hope it's not it, but.
This is year
It's close.
23, 24.
Yeah.
it was 11.5 last year, yeah.
I apologize, I forgot to change the date on the top.
Oh, okay.
That is my fault.
So-
So what year are you
As soon as
using?
possible. That is,
So 23, 24.
but it's through the building committee, so.
Yes, yeah, leave it there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and I guess,
So you guys are behind.
which is why. I appreciate you guys coming in, which is why, with this and the $200,000 for design and engineering at 25 Holding Farms. Now, this was one that was renewed from last year, and we redirected that 200,000 to the emergency services facility building. Okay. So this has come back again this year for another 200,000, and that's what I'm questioning. That's a big question on my end as to why is it a request from the fire departments for one, because. we have a
So,
committee in
do you want
place.
me to touch on that really quick?
Yeah, please.
So we had, I don't know if it's an additional $200,000 or just keeping the $200,000 for the building committee. So the building committee was not, they did not submit CIP to CIP. So we thought it came
Well,
from.
the Lickman carried it and
Okay.
it's.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
carried it, so.
So no,
so
yeah,
it's
this is a request that's been in there.
Yeah.
From our department.
So this is not a new request. This
It's
is-
an old request, but it's not the same money.
Right,
So the reason being is the money we've already talked about for the building committee is already earmarked some for the
so,
consultant, or we're talking about a project engineer, a project manager. So those funds look like they're gonna be used up. These funds here were always for civil engineering, surveying the property, so if the consultants come back and say, let's use the property, we have to start from somewhere. We have to figure out if the property is viable. That's what it was there for.
So,
We have to,
no, I'm sorry, Tom, you've been,
Yeah.
I'm set on it.
no, like I said, what the initial request is for, because again, we needed to know what the property, if the property can be used. And so again, civil engineering, surveying, all that stuff has to be done. If they say, yes, we can build right here, let's build here. Now you have to determine, is it feasible? Can you do it? Will it fit on the property? Will it, all that stuff?
yeah, with
And
the,
that's what this is for.
with the $200,000 that was moved from doing that to doing this. It was my understanding, and God help me, I'm usually wrong, that they'd start with the money for the study and then be able to use some of that money for the surveying and et cetera.
Yes. And here's where the planning challenge comes in, which is exactly in the wheelhouse of this
Okay.
committee. And, but also was a discussion at the Willington Hill Firehouse when we were preparing our request, and that is we have a lot of different potential things happening at the same time.
Mhm.
But you also have this planning process to get the money lined up, which backs you up.
Right,
So
was this?
The decision here was-
Year one or year two?
Could you let him finish?
So the decision here was, put the request back in for this conversation and for the potential that the study, now obviously we're involved with the committee too.
Mhm.
The committee is putting this study through, the study is gonna have some result. Somewhere, probably by July 1 of this year, it will be shared with the townspeople and it'll be a topic of debate. That study, in a pretty good likelihood, is gonna recommend some solutions. And it particularly because of the fact we know we have a fire station that's substandard, we have another fire station that's substandard, and we have a fire station that's closed right now. There's gonna be something coming out of that, and the committee will be starting to bring recommendations, but budget season will already be gone, because we're doing it right now, right? So the idea is if as a planning tool, we can have an earmark available July 1, then if the the study and a recommendation of the committee to the board of selectmen, to the townspeople is anywhere in the realm of figure out what 25 old farms can do, because it's the biggest piece of property of all the potential properties, then the money would be there to take action. Otherwise, no matter what planning we do, we would either need a special funding allocation during the budget year, this coming budget year, or we would need to be back a year from right now, starting the conversation about getting money.
I'm gonna,
And
I'll
waiting.
let you go first, Jeff, and then I have a lot to say about this in general.
I just have a question about the placement of the money, I guess. I understand what you guys are talking about, having that money available to do things mid-budget season. We just had this conversation about school stuff 2 hours ago.
Yep.
But shouldn't it be with these guys?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was gonna get at. You have a whole committee now that is in charge with doing this work. Len, I'm gonna go on my.
Can I just quickly answer that question though?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
It could very well be with the committee. The problem was the departments had to get their requests in. We're in the holiday season. There were only a couple of committee meetings. We had a lot of topics going on. We had a meeting canceled for the committee, so we didn't have a lot of time to get this prepared through the committee to then recommend it up to the board of selectmen, for the board of selectmen to put it in their CIP request. Because that committee is an advisory committee to the board of selectmen, so the
And
process.
technically, they're not
So
a
So maybe it
project,
gets redirected.
project initiator to CIP.
I'm
either.
gonna back this whole thing up because I had a big conversation with Donna about this. These are all in front of CIP, all of the requests they have. You guys have now $600,000 in design requests. Between $110,000 allocated for survey and engineering and 25 old farms, and $80,000 in 22-23 that from Fund 17 that was allocated. $200,000 to the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee under the purview of the Board of Selectmen. Another 200,000 requests from the departments that shouldn't be coming from the departments, it should be coming from the Board of Selectmen if it's going to be funding the Emergency Services Facility Building Committee work. Because you guys are the ones that are charged with advancing whatever this project is. And we've allocated funding for you to do that, no different than the school building committee. They had $200,000 as an advisory, as they are in the same vein as the school building committee. You guys can ask for that $200,000 from the Board of Finance. We provided it to you for this planning and engineering work, including an OPM, including programming, feasibility, to get to the point, similar to the schools, where we have a set of projects that the town can evaluate with budgets and potentially go to referendum on. The school building committee did it $133,000 over the course of 2 years. There are $600,000 dropped out right, which I'm hoping we can clarify and fix tonight. But the reality is you guys are authorized to spend money because it was in the plan. It's been approved in the budget. You have $200,000. You could ask for $100,000 of that now from the Board of Finance to advance your charge. So it.
Can I ask about that though?
Sure.
That 200 Grant, I thought at the time when it went into their budget, and Donna probably talked to you about this.
Yeah.
Didn't that derive from the 110 from Wilmingtonville? And
No, but there's some fun on that too. So the 110 survey and engineering was appropriated, was not appropriated, sorry, it was allocated but not appropriated.
Correct.
Which puts it as a CIP item. It has nothing to do with Board of Finance, it has nothing to do with town meeting votes. It is 110,000 that's tied up for a project that is potentially no longer valid. That we've also provided $200,000 for to the committee to develop that project.
Mhm.
That money, given the magnitude of the equipment replacement, $100,000 in parking lot repair. That is coming out of the reserve fund. So that would be available for any of the town projects that we haven't discussed yet, upcoming as well. Specifically because, and I say that because I personally think we need to be requesting that money back. It is CIP to form a request from the departments to release the hold on that fund. And then it goes back into our general reserve, our capital reserve fund, Fund 04. The $80,000 is a little different. The $80,000 is Fund 17. Correct. That has been, again, allocated and you have access to. the
We could spend it,
$80,000.
and we were asked not to.
Correct, and I appreciate that. That said, Fund 17 doesn't require Board of Finance or town meeting
80,000
vote.
for what?
That was the addition at Station 13 before it became non-habitable.
Oh,
That is
It was to
probably.
finish the design
Yeah,
work.
it was designed
Oh,
for a
alright.
project that is no longer available. And to that end, you guys are gonna come up with recommendations as to what that design will need to be. But it's $75,000 sitting in Fund 17 that we could put towards their equipment requests.
Okay, so what happened when when the 200,000 was given to the joint committee?
Yeah.
We were under the impression that was a total of the 110 and the 80, but it's never been.
We
that.
diverted the 200,000 because we knew that we need funding to advance something because of the piecemeal approach of 80,000 here, $110,000 there. So with that said, the release of these funds is, and again, it's a request from CIP to them to release that fund, to release those funds so they can be made available back in Fund 17 for fire department projects, fire department requests, or whatever the case may be. It's not, it can't be used for anything else if that was Fund 17. But that's a lot of the concern here, because we can't have $600,000 tied up on these projects. And the reality is, much like the school building committee, and this is all pretty important. That bond, that referendum for the school project included $3.5 million in design fees, design and engineering of that project. $15 million worth of construction, 6 to 8% design fees, you're gonna be well over $1 million in architecture and engineering fees, not including fees, legal fees, permitting, any of that fun stuff. It's gonna be a part of the bond project, because we don't have a reserve fund that can cover that, piecemeal or otherwise. So the reality is all of that engineering beyond whatever your work, I suspect, is going to be a part of that total project bond, which is similar to what we've done for the school building committee.
well, right, I'm pretty sure I agree with you, I just wanna make sure I say it right, you guys have, hired Fitch.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I talk to them? I don't know.
Oh, yeah,
Are we
no,
moving on to
yeah.
them?
Yeah, well, they're here because it's all
Okay.
related discussion.
We were invited.
I know that, I know you're here for a purpose, but, so. When you would meet with Fitch, they would be able to help you to understand what you need to have monetarily to proceed. I have to assume, is that,
I don't know if they're gonna be able to provide, because they're from Missouri, their costs. I don't know if they do cost analysis, we haven't got that far yet. I wouldn't think they would touch that because it's so,
Well, it's my understanding, they're doing station
Specific to the
location,
area.
so it's assessing need, correct?
I'm sorry.
They're not, are they developing costs for you guys, or is it just recommending where we should put the resources and develop resources?
Primarily addressing needs.
Yeah,
Right.
so you're gonna need,
Facilities, apparatus, what comprises the total emergency services for
where the best place for the departments are, but not necessarily developing develop.
I wouldn't, I wasn't
project or
expecting that.
pricing.
Don't think that was specifically outlined in their proposal.
We may get some
Like, a bit.
incumbent in the RFP, and I believe in their work would be more. Would not be cost estimates, but would be more like a little bit of directional pointing, such as. This is if you. Leverage this particular configuration of your facilities. You might get this percentage of the town covered with this response quality or timing. If you're looking for a less expensive alternative, this is what percentage coverage you would get. It's gonna be that order of magnitude, not even order of magnitude, it's gonna be sort of comparatives. That's what I think we were asking for in the RFP. Otherwise, it was gonna get too expensive of a consultant operation to do true cost estimate.
And you don't have to drill down into a finite number. I think
Right.
it's not a heavy lift for those guys. They do this every day to come up with
Yeah.
an industry standard square footage for a fire station. And
Yeah.
there's a number out there. What that is, I don't know. There's a number. And they're gonna apply it to that. Is it a solid number? God, no.
Yeah, I mean, are they gonna define what program you need for that level that they have, you know?
From the station? Sure.
Yeah, I think they'll say if you keep the 3 buildings, you're gonna do. Roughly this, about this, maybe not a dollar amount, but comparatively, it'll be more expensive or less expensive than building a new station in one location, things like
Actually, we'll
that.
do like a basic programmatic need for each fire station.
Yeah,
It's the first step in the process, basically, which you guys will have to continue to advance with the onboarding of additional. Which you have roughly 160,000 left. Essentially, both of them. Do you guys have any sense of, have you, I forgot when I listened to your last meeting.
We haven't had a kick-off meeting.
We're trying to work it out.
To see a 4-month schedule for him and his RFP, or was it 3?
the contract was supposed, the RFP was 90 days, but I think they're gonna ask to go longer because we're not moving very quickly.
Yeah.
So the contract's signed, but we haven't had a kickoff meeting yet and stuff, so. They're gonna have a right, I think they're gonna have a reasonable right to say, we can't do it in 90 days, and we haven't started yet.
Yeah.
Well, the duration may stay the same, it's just that we've shifted around the calendar.
Start
a little
date,
bit.
Yeah,
To make it later.
So, I know there's a scope, I just haven't looked at it, and I will. I think from a CIP perspective, it makes, as I started, it makes more sense for you guys to drive this, but now I'm concerned that we're still waiting, and it's like
Yeah,
budget season primo, and this is when we need the money asked for and planned for. I mean, I guess for today's conversation, if we were to talk about the 200,000 from your guys' requests to move over here, that would give you, math is not my subject, 360,000 in
It
your.
was 360, you don't want to do that, do you?
I don't wanna do it at all,
No.
but I mean, not at all, I don't mean to say that, but.
that far down the rabbit hole, then we're.
But you're looking at the 360 for after the consultants are done, what's gonna be the next step to keep moving
That'll be
before,
part of the
next
part of
budget
your
year.
project.
Yes.
in your bond.
right?
If, from my recollection of the school building committee, there was a pot of money that you guys could pull from to do things as they came up. So if you, as the folks who are charged with running the committee and understanding the process, with $160,000 roughly left in your budget, do you have the ability to operate your group feeling confident that you may be able to get the next step in? And if you can't, can you go to the board of finance and ask for some kind of help?
Well, we have $160,000, so if you said $133,000 was preliminary for.
That
That
was
was
the
the full-
entirety of the
full
school building
budget.
committee to get the referendum.
Including
with
communications.
multiple options.
Okay.
I'm not saying, I mean, arguably, it's at least as complicated, if not more so than, you know, in scale. I don't know if it's more complicated, but in
Yeah.
scale, it's triple the scale, right? But even then, you know, you get to the point, and that's, I know I have you guys during your meetings about getting somebody on board, getting an OPM on board to advance the process, because the committee will be around for a year now. We haven't even got the thing that was teed up and asked before the Board of Selectmen a year ago. Longer than that, because that station location study was there and we're just not moving the needle. And when we start to talk, and I know I'm gonna share screen again, Lisa, but when we start to talk about the values of, I kind of figure out how to share screen.
Yeah, Zoom moves some things around.
Ah.
Just a few things have changed.
When we start to talk about, this town doesn't have a lot of experience, in. What the hell is it? I thought I had it open.
It's not the green, that's a share.
Here we go. No, I got it. I just want to make sure I'm bringing up the right window. Share. There it is. So I don't know if you guys attended. They were paid attention to the meeting last week, but we did some, or I kind of did a thought exercise here where we took, this is the school bond data from December. Last year, and based on a $37 million project. The year one bond cost of a 20-year bond payment on a 20-year was 3.4 million, on a 30-year was 2.8. This was just an exercise at trying to come up with some sort of comparative analytical costs to look at what the total need CIP has ahead of us. So that year one percentage is a point of principle is the number I want you to pay attention to, 0.27%. Understanding that as a rough order of magnitude thought process, it's scalable, right? So 37 million is at 9.27% of the 37 million. It's going to be the similar percentage at 15 million, right? So simplifying this, a year's delay in getting this off the ground, gentlemen, on a $15 million project at 5% escalation, which is what we're seeing, is $750,000 of added cost to the project. That amounts to $70,000 a year by those ratios and an annual bond payment increase. And we're hesitant, and it's why I'm personally. But that's 70 grand a year versus just committing 70 grand to get an OPM to move the process along, just from delaying a year. It adds $1 million in total project cost to the town, approximately, with principal and interest, 750 plus interest over the life of the loan over 20 years. It's meaningful numbers for delay, which is why, and like the school building committee, the recommendations there were getting OPM involved earlier in the process would have saved time and expedited the process. Getting architectural and engineering people involved earlier in the process today would have saved and made for a more efficient study. We've done this recently. And we have to move faster. This is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so go ahead.
I think
Very
you
much-
said that
very
at the
much.
Beginning and avoided the lecture, but let's move along.
It's not a lecture.
Very
It's not
much
meant to be a lecture. It's just meant to be-
I know it
it's
wasn't meant to
meaningful.
be, but that's how it was coming off and.
Going along with your point, Jim.
Yeah.
The. Maybe not in exactly those words, and maybe not in the configuration that you are imagining, or that this committee decides they want. That is exactly what Willie Hill Fire Department is talking about, is. Trying to chip away at some of this stuff to keep it moving, and also something you've been also very passionate about, and that I agree with, is trying to find ways that we can advance some of our capital projects without financing. And so if there are chunks of this we can be chipping off now that don't get financed in the package, then we've paid for them already and it's done. And obviously, I think you and I both would love to be in a world where we put away a whole bunch of this money in advance of these projects and pay cash for these projects. But to get to that point, we'd have to stop fixing and building anything for 20 years first, right? To put all the money away, then we could have enough cash to start buying things. So we're trying to get this conversation that's happening right now going by saying, we want a pot of money to keep chipping away at this stuff. We have very reasonable expectation that we should know more about that property. Let's do some of the engineering.
So
If this group feels that is better done in another way, that's this group's job to recommend a different way.
So,
But
yeah,
that's the reason this is
Not to lose the
conversations
momentum.
happening.
no, I get it, but that's the whole reason why this committee was formed in the first place, because it was piecemeal projects from two separate departments that wasn't working with the whole. So, I think I think we need to be clear. In that we think, or we suggest or propose that it's the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee that really should be driving this effort. I mentioned that because of the $200,000 request that came in, you know, as separate funding. So I think that's the first step, and is that we should recommend that we recognize that funding towards the development of these projects should be at the purview of the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee, just as blanket statement. I also think because of the value, and I understand the reason to chip away at this, you can do a lot with $160,000 to get to the point where you understand what you're trying to chip away at. And then when we understand the magnitude of that, it'll be a year from now. We'll be here next year if we really think we're gonna be able to float significant architecture and engineering fees out of reserve, and we won't be able to. Then it's really gonna be a bonded, it's gonna be part of your project costs, and that it's the voters need to decide that we're pursuing this, and then they have a comprehensive picture of what the costs are, which is what I'm trying to get at. So I think, quite frankly, we need to, I'd like to suggest, and I'm gonna make motions in a minute, suggest motions on it in a minute, that we formally request the departments release the $110,000 that's sitting there tied up in the prior request for $110,000 for Wellington Hill survey and engineering at 25 Old Farms.
I think that's hard to move.
Well, just as a point of order, I don't think it's in the purview of CIP to be able to do that.
It is.
I think the CIP can make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. But the CIP can't,
approval, the CIP plan authorizes that provides those funds.
but it is gone out of the CIP's hands because it was a recommended plan to the selectmen and it went.
So it's a recommendation.
No, because it was approved in a previous budget by the taxpayers. It's in the town budget.
Appropriated, so it's
right,
but
it's not CIP.
It's allocated. It is not been appropriated.
I understand that. I've been to a million of these meetings. I understand that, but it is not CIP. It is Board of Finance.
It's not. It is
because
not
it was
Board of
approved by
Finance.
the taxpayers.
It is not Board of Finance because it has not been appropriated by Board of Finance. It is CIP's direction to request. It's actually you guys would need to release the funds. We requested of you as a formal.
Yes, we could ask Board of Finance to release the funds, yes,
No,
because we're the
that has
requesters.
nothing to do, it has nothing to do with Board of Finance. It is not on their table. It is a
think
CIP request.
I think we're confusing some things though. I think the fact that it was in the year one of a project of a CIP year that was passed by the voters at referendum in the budget. I think Mike's right about that. It's passed, it's not appropriated because we didn't go to town meeting for the actual
It
purpose.
is no different than, we just did the same thing with the chimney repairs at,
It's bad, but it's in the past.
correct.
The
So was the
chimney-
chimney
So moving
repairs,
it
they did
forward.
it out of, no, so this is no different than the chimney repairs for the Board of Ed that they did out of pocket instead of what was in the approved plan at $80,000.
I'm not
But
sure.
they only needed to release the
Yeah,
CIP
it feels like
and the
we're getting-
finance department, a release of that fund, so that could be used for other purposes.
But they released
Because it
it
was
and they
not-
had done it from a different plan, and the plan, the project was done. This is not a
Right.
project that's done.
Correct, but you have alternate funding for it. Those funds likewise were not appropriated. The
Right.
release only came to CIP. It was requested by
I
CIP.
believe that Mike's right on this.
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about completely, but CIP, because they're an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen, has no fiduciary responsibility. And no fiduciary power, no administrative power in the town's
Except
budget.
it's the plan's approval.
Yes, but it is just a plan. The
Correct.
plan goes to the Board of Selectmen, it becomes the Board of Selectmen's plan,
Correct.
right? The baby is handed off, it's now been adopted. And then the Board of Selectmen sends it to the taxpayers and they adopt it, now it's their baby, so you don't have custody anymore. Because it is, and I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to.
That's fine, and I
Describing it.
explicitly went through this with Donna, and Donna's direction.
With all due respect to Donna, I believe she is technically incorrect, because we've battled this stuff for years. I've been on CIP, Board of Finance, I've been a selectman.
I will table that one, and have Donna follow up. But I am gonna go ahead and, because Fund 17 is in our purview. I'm going to move.
So suggesting use of Fund 17 is in your purview.
Yes.
Fund 17 itself is not in your purview. No money is in your purview.
Correct, I'm not suggesting let me make the motion and then you can.
Well, before you speak, I'd like to say one thing.
Yeah.
Mike D'Amato has applied for a grant for slightly south of $500,000.
Mhm.
Specifically for repairs to Station 13 and an emergency operations center.
Yeah. that was on-
That is, it was moving, according to our senators, that was moving, it's a federal grant. Where Station 13 is specifically mentioned in the request, not, there was nothing about just general funding, it was very specific. The last news was that it was moving along and seemed favorable, but then with the recent election and the change in administration, it's been rather silent. We don't know anything about what that money would be,
Sorry.
You know, there's a freeze.
yeah, that's right. I know all of that thought, but either way,
Likelihood is low.
people that have experience with this, which I don't. Generally, those requests come with a time frame to work. So you mentioned there was $80,000 in 2017 for research. I would suggest you might want to.
No, it was specifically for the design and engineering.
Oh, so design and engineering, well, there you go. Because this grant is specifically for Station 13, I think keeping that money in there might be a wise choice. Because if we do get this grant, there would be a time frame where action has to be taken. And then monies would have to be spent, and it would be specifically for.
But it may not be that, because that is not the project that those funds were allocated towards. The funds were specifically allocated to advance the design of the addition to Station 13.
Is that any different than getting a
So I
grant?
think that's a Board of Finance question.
That's a Board of Finance question, but.
And quite frankly, if it comes up
There's a lot of-
urgently, that's a Board of Finance request.
Okay, but if the money's already there, why not just leave it there? Doesn't that ease?
Not when,
The process?
not when we have, equipment, $225,000, $250,000 refurbishment and 3 other things on the plan.
Okay. That's
At
fine.
least in my opinion.
Well, I mean, I think the point of using Fund 17 money for design is unprecedented. I mean,
It's
that's,
also problematic to that.
yeah, I mean, the original idea to use it for that to me is a little problematic, but
I just want to let you know that that's out
Business.
there,
Appreciate
and
it.
they need to be funded with a time frame that we don't know.
But we don't have a request in from the Board of Selectmen
Right.
related to that.
And
Potential,
if Trump CEO
because we don't know.
on
anything.
grants
Yeah.
holds,
You won't be getting that.
that money may evaporate anyway.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna make 2 simple motions here. The first one is, if you'll humor me, is that I move that the Capital Improvement Program Committee formally recognizes and acknowledges that the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee, through its charge, is the leading town body responsible for managing all capital requests, the advancement of any future fire station related renovation or replacement projects, and not the individual departments themselves. Literally just stating, sorry, that's the motion, and then I'll clarify the intent.
I'll second for discussion.
Thank you. The intent there is just to provide clarity on, because there's been confusion both on the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee as to what those funds were available for the past year, what they were directed to the committee to do. There's also clear confusion. Yeah, they didn't know that they had access to these funds and what they were for. They thought they were for repair projects. They came before Board of Finance last year, thinking that they could use those to do investigative work at Station 13 and there was discussion about time.
oh, okay, you meant as
Yeah.
far as that goes, yeah. I was thinking.
So my thought process there is we need to provide direction that the request should be coming through the selectman's office and managed by the building committee.
Shouldn't the selectman's office give them that direction? I
The
don't,
Selectman's office has given that direction at the, with the formation of the charge of the committee. I don't think that this body has the,
If that was
the
the case,
wherewithal to change the charge of the committee.
well, the committee can make recommendations. We're not changing the charge of the committee. I'm just saying that we recognize the charge of the committee and that they are responsible.
Why don't we change, I would suggest that we change the motion to say that this board recognizes the charge of the committee from the board of selectmen.
The charge of the committee, Pete, just remind me on this function, this part of the function, design costs and study costs,
Mhm.
building cost, you know, that. Is that part of the charge from the selectmen?
I haven't looked at it for several months, but I believe that's.
Do you know, Mike?
It was far more than just design. It was
Yeah, it was.
really create a 50-year plan and
and to me, what
As
provide,
far as the scope of the committee,
yeah, it was,
well, the committee or the study.
yeah, I mean, it's talking about the charge of the committee.
Yeah, so look at
To me, it was broader than just design and engineering, which is why we went.
So actually, I'm gonna rein this in a little bit because we have a motion that's been made and seconded. And before we go. Quite frankly, I'll talk to you, Pete, procedurally. We gotta keep that kind of. On the side of the aisle, right? So yeah, that's the intent, is that my concern is that hasn't been relayed because we got a request from the fire departments for $200,000 again this year. And we have placeholder values for prior projects dedicated to the department specifically for engineering some projects that are not under their control.
So I think that hearing this discussion, the folks that need to know now what they're supposed to do. Like, I'm not comfortable with this. My space on the board being used for that purpose. I don't think I have a purview to tell these guys. I mean, they're under this guy. We're under this guy. Feel like their direction needs to come from him. And if we have questions, we can look at the charge and say, what the heck, man? Like, this is something that we have a question about, but I don't think that we can formally say anything about it. We can say, if they submit these things to us, we can say that should go through these guys, but then they have that discussion. As far, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of confused about the right of it. I think it's just kind of confusing the issue. I think we know that this is, I mean, I don't even know that, I don't know enough about the charge to know, are they overseers of a combined project in the future?
Yeah.
Was that exact? I mean, is that far, Mike?
Mr. Chairman, would you allow me to just clarify on the charge goal?
Yes, assuming.
Just as a point of information, the charge was designed to have the ability to roll up. The charge is initially about this, getting people together for this initial information gathering. But as you read through the charge, it says the committee, I'm very much paraphrasing, will develop ideas and recommend them up. And if approved, will be empowered to execute them if approved. And then further, the committee will potentially develop projects, recommend them up. And if approved, the committee will be allowed by the charge, if approved, to execute the projects. So it's designed to have that ability to roll up.
Okay.
It's advisory, but it can be a building committee, it can be a functional building committee if those things get approved. That's the short and sweet of it.
Thank you. But it gives them the ability to manage the design and engineering towards whatever the single projects are, which is my opinion. And I mentioned this as a precursor because I'll go to that for the next motion.
I'm not comfortable with that either. I mean, Pete's right here. He's on this committee. I guess I don't see the need.
I think I've already made I'm not comfortable with this motion.
Seeing no bite on it, I'll withdraw the motion to avoid the potential confusion. But I do think we need to be clear in our direction. Huh?
You got other votes at the table.
Huh?
You have other votes at the table.
I haven't gotten any positive feedback yet.
So sorry, I don't, I'm sorry. I don't.
So
Maybe I
with
don't.
that said, I am also going to move that the Capital Improvement Program Committee formally requests the written release from both Wellington Hill Fire Department and Wellington Fire Department #1 of the full remaining balance of $75,760 in unspent funds from Fund 17 for the fiscal year 22-23 for the Wellington Fire WFD #1 Fire Station Addition and Engineering Project. This formal release would free up the funds for use on other pending fire department related capital requests. This done is the Fund 17. This fund was from Fund 17. We're requesting from the fire departments. Oh, sorry. I moved it. I'll stop discussion.
No, read it again. Could you just read it again and a little slower, please?
I move that the Capital Improvement Program Committee formally requests written release from both Williamsville Fire Department and Wellington Fire Department number one of the full remaining balance of $75,760 in unspent funds from Fund 17 for fiscal year 22-23 WFD number one Fire Station Addition Engineering Project. This formal release would free up the funds for use on other pending fire department related capital requests. That is the asking for the release of the 75,000 in change from, or sorry, I should say the number 75,760 sitting in Fund 17. That is allocated, but will not be spent because the project doesn't exist.
I'm gonna second for discussion and then I'm gonna ask a question.
Sure.
Can I ask Alex a question?
That's exactly what I was gonna do.
Did you say that you had the money, but you were asked not to spend it?
Correct.
So you have the ability to spend it?
No, it told us don't spend it.
No, Board of
Well, who
Finance,
told
so
you
we
not
had
to
a
spend it? I
conversation
don't
at Board of
understand
Finance.
that.
This was a conversation at Board of Finance and through CIP last year when the building committee was formed. Did that money not be spent?
I think the question is, was it approved and allocated? Was it available?
It is available fund.
It was approved by the taxpayers.
Because it was approved by the taxpayers and available for spend, to be spent. The fire department and.
That's your question, right?
I don't know, I think so.
So the funds were allocated out of Fund 17. There was initially $80,000. But we spent 4,000 working in the design team.
Right,
And we halted all of that
Right.
work. And we had the problem with the building.
so,
So we stopped the
so what,
request of the Board of Finance.
so would you then go back to the Board of Finance and say, remember the conversation we had last year? Does that still stand? Like, cause if you've already had this conversation, wouldn't you just have it again this year?
Can I hit this a little harder head on for me?
Yes, sir.
You're not gonna spend that money on design for an addition to the current station.
No, I got to the Board of Finance thing.
So all we need to do is release it back. That wouldn't hurt you any at this point, because you don't have a project to spend it on. And that way we could spend that money on buying you a new pickup.
Without knowing the outcome of the consultant's report, it'd be foolish to spend a penny on it.
Right, correct. Yes, so it'd be more intelligent right now to buy you a pickup than it would be to
That's what I
spend
was
money
gonna
on
say,
design for a building.
And we don't
I don't
disagree with
think
that,
that's
but
what you're saying, though. That sounds like the opposite of what you're saying.
So.
Didn't you just say it would be foolish to spend a penny of that money until we have?
On design of the parts, we don't know what the result.
Oh, I
of
thought
the
you meant
consultant-
period after,
No, no,
it would
no,
be
no.
foolish to spend.
We don't know
Got
what
it.
the results of the.
Got it. Yes.
This ball started rolling prior to everyone deciding to form a committee and hire a consultant and all that. So that's why I got hold.
And my goal here is just to consolidate all of these disparate requests for funding and release the ones that aren't necessary because we have requests that we can't afford to pay for.
I think they said they were going to.
Yeah,
But, right, so in this case, I think, Alex, pardon me, is that it was allocated, it was voted on by the taxpayers. I think it's probably appropriate that if you decide to, listen, we're gonna put this back in the kitty, we're not gonna use it for that purpose.
That's all the motion is just requesting a formal letter from you to release the funds back so it can be.
but it would be to the Board of Finance, not to CIP.
Not according to that.
Procedurally, I think it's wrong.
Fund 17, all see, with the way, and I'm
I
only
think-
gonna
I
say
think-
what Donna told me is that. Fund 17 does not require Board of Finance approval to spend, that CIP. actually does.
No, that's, you're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
But you're right, so, but, just bear with me, I'm up to date. So, Fund 17, by virtue of its existence and by design, did not take into account any taxpayer money through taxation. It's medical reimbursement, insurance reimbursement. Over the years, 25 years now, Stuart? Give or take,
2000.
that fund has been utilized with guidance from the fire department, with guidance from CIP and the Board of Finance to lease, purchase apparatus. The priorities in the Fund 17 guidance that I think you referenced that, there's listed priorities here. One is the ambulance. Two is the potential for offsetting staff costs. And then it goes down into anything else that has to do with the emergency services for the town of Wellington. So you can't buy a dump truck, you can't go buy a dump truck. However, under different administrations, it was ruled it was by policy that money, the expenditures in that did not have to go through town meeting, did not have to be voted on or referendum or anything like that because it was taxpayer money. Subsequent administrations, Christina, you still on?
Yes.
Is she still here? She
Yeah, I
is.
think
Yeah.
I'm-
I am.
You know where I'm going with this, right?
I
So,
think so.
previous administrations felt that it was not needed to go through, a town meeting or referendum.
Because it went through the
To
budget.
expend money out of Fund 17. Subsequent administrations that came in and said, listen, even though that's probably true, because it's not taxpayer money, we're going to put it through the entire process and give everybody, an open shot at it as far as voting and deciding on what to do. What you said is technically absolutely correct. Not that you're asking for my approval, but you're not, but you're correct. It does not require taxpayer approval.
I'm just reiterating
That's
what I was told by our business.
Yeah, that's a quick history lesson. It's not required.
I don't think there's an issue of giving that letter.
Well, and that's why I just think we need to formally request it. I don't even know if we need to formally request it, but I know we need a formal letter from you. So I'm asking for it and it's a motion on the table.
Can we, from my,
To clarify procedurally, what Tyler said is 100% true, except the missing piece from that is the contract between the town and the fire departments.
Right.
Says the expenditures from Fund 17 will go through the Board of Finance.
Right. You're right.
So Donna may be forgetting that part because she's not actually party to the contract between the Board of Selectmen and the fire departments. So
And
also, because we're talking about stuff in a previous approved year, as I said before in my baby got adopted analogy. The request would be received with respect, but it has no, it's just a request. It has no technical
Yeah, and
weight or whatever.
all I can do is reiterate what our business manager told me 2 days.
Right.
Which.
But the CIP
Which is that
cannot,
the only action on this required is it is.
right,
CIP.
and with all due respect to Donna, she is incorrect.
could,
I am so sure of that. And I wouldn't say that about the finance manager if I didn't feel really sure about that.
So,
do you mind if we hear from Christina and Melissa or?
yeah, I was trying to put my hand up, but I just want to, the only thing that I want to add is that the whole reason why any of that stuff changed over the years is just in the spirit of transparency. We just want to make sure everybody sees what's happening and understands what's happening and that the town is involved in the process. And so that's the goal. There's really no other goal. And I think that's being achieved by what we're doing here. So I think that's okay.
How do you feel about the motion on the table?
I honestly forgot what it was already.
it's on your screen.
It's on the screen. Okay, that one.
I'll be more than happy to send a letter to the Board of Finance and the CIP committee tomorrow, releasing the
Thank you.
75,000.
Without your motion.
Without your motion.
I appreciate
You'll
it.
have that tomorrow. If I can find it.
Yeah,
can you
I
please
just don't think it's necessary. Yeah.
I don't think we need a formal letter, but if you can send me what the actual dollar figure left is, I will get that.
I will do that. I will get an email following up to them.
What is the town's policy for unspent funds? Unspent because the project scope changes because of Station 13 or the 110,000 for Wellington Hill. And they're not the first, it probably won't be the last projects. There was 1 year ago that the cemetery wanted to put a driveway in. They got the money approved for 30,000. Then they figured out people aren't being buried fast enough up there to require a driveway for 10 or 15 years.
Probably good.
And the
Good
money.
news.
People weren't dying to get in.
You're right, Stuart. There's never been guidance by the finance office on what happened.
And there's been a few others in terms of, or the Wellington Hill parking lot, which was approved for a certain amount, but turned out to be an inadequate amount and wasn't moving forward. And I've yet to see anything in writing by policy, by Board of Finance, the business office and the selectmen of if some funds that were approved through the town budget CIP plan, eventually through a referendum aren't spent, when and where does that money go?
Through my discussion with Donna, as they sit there allocated pending the formal releases from the requesting department. Unless
And in some cases, she said CIP could make the decision to just release the unspent funds through some form of,
I-
but we didn't get there.
I believe that it has to do with which fund the funding originally came from. And
This
at
little
what
house
point is
reserve.
a project dead is the problem, because I just finished a project that was started 4 years ago. Some people would assume that if nothing happens for 3 years, it's dead. Not necessarily so. It can be put off.
And projects have often
Is the
been
project
closed
for the
after
roofs on the
finance.
schools dead because it hasn't been done? No, it's, the money sits there until the project's done, and sometimes it takes
That's
a
true.
long time for government to get a project
And
done.
it often comes to Board of Finance and is closed by an official vote at Board of
Right, and
Finance,
then it's
which is
moving,
what
the
I'm
Board of
getting at.
Finance can move it back to the original
close it.
fund.
Right, and then,
But there's a difference between a project that languishes because nobody's doing anything.
And a project that's dead.
Because you can't.
But a project that's language, a project that's dead that hasn't been declared dead is still language.
Can I just make a point of order real quick?
Yeah, sure.
All of us are being allowed to speak. Peter Latinzik's had his hand up for a while,
Oh.
on and off, trying to speak.
Sorry, I haven't
Can we
seen
let
it.
him
Sorry.
speak, just because we've all had a chance to weigh in on your conversations, I think it would be fair.
It might have been
Yeah,
done.
I didn't,
He just had it up, so.
I thought it was Christina.
Christina.
No, there you
go.
go.
Okay, he may give up, sorry.
Are you there?
Certainly.
That's okay. I can wait till present to speak.
Okay, well, thank you, Pete. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, I appreciate it. So with that said, I'll just say to close it off, really the only intent, and I appreciate it, gentlemen, is just to figure out, there's way too much money tied up in unknown currently with too much need. So to the point that, to the degree that we can release holds, and I will follow with Donna and try to get clarification on the 110 and
Would the same concept apply to the 110 that was not authorized to the Board of Finance?
to this Fund 04, so the requirements,
Are different.
well, they are, but because that wasn't appropriated.
Right. But is the end goal the same at the end of this fiscal year?
The end goal is the same, I'd like to get those.
Is it, where's it gonna end up, if anywhere? Is it gonna add it to the building committee for perhaps somebody they may or may not do better? How you look at it, does it go, just go back into the general fund? Where's that 110 gonna go?
It goes back to the capital reserve fund. The Fund 17, the 80,000 or 75,000
Go
and
back to
change,
Fund
go to Fund 17, which could then be used for those pieces of those equipment. The 200,000 requests currently before us would need to be.
Makes sense to me.
I
to
think
leave
it goes to the general fund, only because it's
Already allocated.
it's already been out through approval by the taxpayers. I think unused funds have to return to the general fund first. Then the Board of Finance could make an action to move it to capital reserve.
It is, however, held in capital reserve, because that's what the money is.
Can I please ask a question?
Yes.
Before you guys go on? I would hope that either, Donna will watch this meeting and have answers to the questions, or that we're keeping good track of the things that we need to have Donna answer. Because this is one of the reasons, we've talked about this for, I don't know, 45 minutes, and there's no resolution. Because everyone has different opinions, and Donna is the person with the information. So I'm gonna renew my request once again for her to attend these meetings.
I that's that sheet.
I know, Jim,
I agree, we need her here if we're gonna talk about the, policy on the funds and how they moved. I think that the Board of Finance uses it that way too.
So with that said. I mean, we have a motion on the table and seconded. Do we feel comfortable voting about it, or
I think that I would
asking?
I would
the motion?
kindly ask you to withdraw the motion as the action's already being taken.
Perfect. So I will withdraw that motion, and thank you, gentlemen, for being open to considering it. I will follow up with Donna and see what the actuality is for the 110,000, but I think in a similar fashion. If we can, it may change a little bit if it doesn't go back to the capital reserve, which is where it is sitting and goes into the general fund, but it's the same difference either way. It's still money the taxpayer has available to offset the cost of something else.
We just have to know who to address on the issue, and I don't have to address it.
I believe that would be the
I will.
Board of Finance.
And
Yeah,
if it's the
and
Board of
again, I have
Finance,
to address it with my department in a meeting as well, too.
Yeah.
It's just.
No, understood. I appreciate that, which is why I wanted to give you a formal motion. Well, let us say we were formally requesting this,
I
so
can,
that you had something you could go to your boards and yada, yada, yada. That was the intent behind it.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
There's
still
no question on
question,
that.
and being ignorant of some of the details of government financial matters. I heard that Fund 17 is not taxpayer dollars.
It is, it's correct.
Okay, if that money's made available to our community, which pool are we gonna pull?
You're not gonna be pulling from Fund 17 on this, I believe at this time. You'll be pulling from Fund 4.
The original 200,000.
You have 200,000 from
You have
capital.
200,000,
Which,
when
which
you
would,
run out of that, come back.
okay, which would still run through the gauntlet of Board of Finance.
Right,
And
right,
town meeting to
right.
spend that.
Hey,
Correct.
Of course.
On 17, we shouldn't have to do that.
No, you still.
No.
If we do that.
Well, like Christine said, the spirit of transparency is the best thing to do, it's just that you don't have to, that's all.
Okay. No, I understand that.
I'd much rather have it done that
Both,
way.
both departments, it's our goal is transparency, making sure that.
No, I get that. I get that. I just want to make sure we're not complicating things even more.
Can I just clarify? Is the primary purpose or the original purpose or whatever of Fund 17 was to be in reserve for the use of both departments in town for large equipment that is, you know, as we discussed earlier tonight, too expensive for us to handle in regular planning.
That's very well stated, with the exception of, with the priorities listed in the agreement, in the contract.
Yeah, there are other
Yes,
priorities.
ambulance first, staff, and yeah. Yep. It's been used for a plethora of projects.
Yeah.
Right, but the apparatus alone could take,
Suck that out in
could
a
be
second.
primary for, I mean,
I think that's how we've done it. We've
Yeah.
spread the truck replacements out so that Fund 17 would handle an a fire truck for Wellington Hill and an ambulance for us, or vice versa.
You always have to make sure that the fund is sustainable for the replacement of the ambulance when needed.
Right.
Anything after that can be dispersed as you see fit, so the fire here, so the ambulance has to be, you know, maintain that priority.
makes. I didn't really know that was, you know.
Is that, I mean,
I thought
I'm
it was-
assuming that's written
Every
somewhere.
time.
The contract's in the contract, or it's in the contract.
And it specifies the ambulance is the top priority?
Yep.
Okay, I didn't know that. Not that it cares.
Because that's where the money's coming.
That's why.
I thought it was.
I understand.
Fire department,
I didn't.
fire apparatus and ambulance, I didn't realize it was
The ambulance is a
distinguished.
priority.
Okay.
The top.
And is that from 22?
John was first elected.
I think
Bob
it's
was
2001.
I think the version that we're using right now was signed in one of the intermediate years and it's just been renewed and renewed and renewed. It's like a 2005 or I think 2005
Every
version.
5 years perpetual divine intervention. was like,
So I'm gonna take the liberty, because you have seemed to veer off the topic a little bit. So ambulance, how do you know how much to keep in there with, for the ambulance?
We work with Don, usually, you know,
So we provide the forecasting based on our, on the insurance recovery revenues versus the expenditures that come out of that for, you know, the paramedics and the billing fees. And we watch that, we watch the revenue. Probably, I used to watch every month. I don't know.
I get it from the billing company every month.
We see it, and we've all worked with Donna to watch the fund.
I'm just wondering how much you know to save in there is what I'm wondering. Like, how much do you know you can spend without deleting it? for the
Donna
ambulance?
does a lot of work based on our information.
Donna does the forecasting of that.
So
With
Donna has a spreadsheet
With the CIP plan.
that you've gotten an out-of-date version of at the beginning of this CIP season, which has the 5 or 6 different funds. It has the beginning balance that she knows what it is, the expenditures in this current fiscal year that have been approved, an ending fund balance for the current year. Then she goes out the next 5 years based on a CIP plan, where we've identified what's gonna be paid from Fund 17 or the rec department or some of the other funds. And then so that just keeps following through. And if CIP does call a bad job, that they push too much to Fund 17, you'll see the fund go negative. And that's CIP's problem or purview to fix that. You can't spend more than you have in that fund. So to say that, oh, we're gonna buy a fire truck here, here, and here, but we're $1 million short, then you have to start getting the money from
The
somewhere.
way I always forecast about sheet, you look at what the, say we're in the middle year, right now, we don't need the ambulance, you're doing a refurb. You look at what the requests are, but in the back of your mind, 4 or 5 years from now, you have to have $200,000-300,000 for the ambulance. So you may not want to buy 2 brand new fire trucks at 1.2 million. And commit all those lease payments because you're not gonna be able to get the ambulance then.
Right.
So is the 300, thank you, I didn't mean to just turn my head like that, so the ambulance, the balance that you said at the beginning of the meeting,
That was.
300 and
That was
something.
the actual account balance as of July 1st, 2024.
So is that Donna's forecast after the ambulance cost?
Yes, because that was supposed to be 2 years ago that started payments, and I believe she was forecasting that payment already in there.
So I'm just trying to make sure I understand this. So we have, not we, but like, when we're talking about money from Fund 17 and we talk about the refurb and all that stuff, we as a CIP committee have 300 and something thousand dollars to on our paper allocate. So that doesn't count what you guys are keeping for the ambulance.
No, it does, shoot it all back to the ambulance.
It does, but there's extra. I think there's already money tied. I think that's available balance compared to spec balance.
So the balance is somewhat higher than what it normally would be because we haven't done an ambulance payment for the last 2 years. So it's a bit higher. Now that we're doing a new chassis, you're available to lease that, it has a new VIN number. And so there's gonna be payments for the next 5 to 7 years, I don't know what period of time I picked, for that, so there's gonna be roughly $50,000 a year in ambulance payments coming out every year for the next 5 to 7 years.
But that balance is also grown over the last year.
That's right, so it's somewhat a little bit artificially higher.
Yeah.
To kind of close the loop on that, I had asked Anna for I look back at what the ins and outs of Fund 17 was for the past 5 years, so that we could project what potential revenues were coming, understanding what she's also capturing for expenditures for recurring obligations, permitted obligations, lease payments, et cetera. I was hoping to get it tonight as well. No, did not. So I will continue to push for it.
She's done a great job, it's always been viable.
I do have a finance forum.
You've done a great job, it's always been viable, it's never gone negative.
Yeah, and I suspect we're close on the balance. I'm just trying, so we can get an understanding, as what you guys done for the past 5 years, what the incoming for that above whatever your expenditures are, so that 3 years from now, if there's gonna be an extra $200,000 in there, or $300,000, it makes a big difference. So, potentially.
We can provide forecasting for you too, if you want to do some projections, 3 to 5 years out, based on our call volume and averages.
Yeah, that's what we're trying, that's what we're trying to get at as we start to analyze this entire spending picture, so.
Mr. Chairman, I move, we move to present to speak.
I agree, we can move to table old business because we've talked
Thank
about
you.
capital planning strategies.
Anyway, yeah.
I don't think you need to move to do that, but I'm gonna move, do we have to table formally capital?
No, we just go.
We'll table it. Let's go to present to speak. Anybody, well, we'll go to Peter first since he waited with his hand up. We'll go online. Anybody online? Please state your name and address for the record. Peter, go for it.
I think I did that properly by raising my hand.
Thank you, sir.
Look at you.
Progress, Peter Latinchich, 97 Trask Road. I was raising my hand throughout the evening because I was very concerned that much of the discussion tonight was, for lack of a better word, simply out of order. As I expressed in the first present to speak, you are an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen. You don't allocate funds. You don't disperse funds. You can recommend those things. I would strongly suggest you recommend the Board of Finance stop using Fund 17 for operational costs, for example, when it's dedicated for capital projects. But even that should be a recommendation from you folks. And you certainly should not be seeking to change the charge of any other town board or committee. I happen to be serving with Mike on the Emergency Services Building Committee, and your motion tonight directing us to do anything just seemed wrong to me, and I was glad to see the majority of your committee tonight agreed. We have a town meeting form of government. The sovereignty in our town lies with the town's people. We elect people to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen to make financial decisions. We certainly appreciate your efforts in prioritizing capital projects. And I hope to see more in that area and less in directing funds or directing other committees. Thank you very much. And good evening.
Thank you, Peter. I'm gonna clarify because I was directed at the motions I made. I didn't recommend any changes to your charge, gentlemen, in the motion, nor did I recommend directing funds elsewhere. I recommended this board pursue the release by the departments of those funds back to their respective balances so that they could be put to other uses. Which I still think is important, and which the fire department agree. Anybody else online? All right, anybody in the room? I think we've talked enough. I
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
You and Ben are tied right now, just saying.
Just saying.
44.
At what point in the game?
Halfway through the second half.
You built the last.
Oh, wow.
They can take a dive though, because they were down 14 at the half.
Okay.
Well, they're down 3 now with 11 minutes to go.
I just.